6:02, getting a late start at it this morning. What's going on from the 104.5 The Zone Studios? I'm Robert Walsh. Last night on Thursday Night Football, Jags stopped the Saints on fourth down from 6 yards away from the end zone to win it 31-24. Trevor Lawrence's knee looked fine to me as he was leading the Jags in rushing, 8 carries for 59 yards. Jags move on to 5-2 and remain in the first place in the AFC South. Big game this weekend with no Titans football. Number 17 Tennessee takes on number 11 Alabama. If you're out and about on Saturday, you can check out the game right here on 104.5 The Zone. Pre-game coverage starts at 12:30 and it's going to take you all the way up to kickoff at 2:30. Also yesterday, Panthers wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr. requested permission to seek a trade. Carolina has discussed the matter with his agent Vince Taylor as the player seeks a more prominent role. He's welcome back if no trade is found. The former second-round pick has 104 catches, 742 yards, and 1 touchdown since 2021. Another name to watch as the trade deadline approaches. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome to your Friday morning on RKW, brewed by 8th and Roast, the third Saturday in October Eve. As the Titans continue a bye-week weekend, we get you ready for Tennessee and Alabama. Continue our weekly visit with voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, and much more on a Friday morning edition of the show. We've got former Tennessee Titan Brad Hopkins filling in for Ramon Foster this morning. Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, our producer. My name is Will Bowling. It is Friday, October the 20th, and our mission, our charge to the people on Fridays is to act like it.
1045.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. How are we doing?
Good morning.
Brad, welcome.
Will you own some Gators?
Yes.
I do not own any Gators.
We claim because Ramon owns Gators.
You know Ramon owns Gators.
Oh, yeah.
Of course he does.
There was never any doubt about that.
But if you wore some Gators, I would be impressed, Will.
I know.
Do you have some?
Heck no.
Okay.
Well,
Just checking.
Why would you be impressed, though, if you don't have any?
I'm more of a tennis shoe guy.
That's fair.
I'm
Me
more
too.
of a wolf and shepherd. What's Gronk's shoe?
Shepherd.
Fair enough. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah?
How are you guys?
Good.
Great. Ready for Tennessee, Alabama. A little stressed about Tennessee, Alabama, but in a good way.
It's a big rivalry.
See, I wanted to get in that later on with Brent Hub.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a rivalry if the team that you go up against you continually lose to?
Well, now it's kind of getting more back to even. Not
Does one
even,
game count?
but-
It's a
no,
streaky
but,
rivalry.
You know,
All throughout history, it is a very streaky rivalry. You can make the same argument about Ohio State, Michigan. Michigan never won the thing until the past 2 years, and we still claim that one's a rivalry, for sure.
The reason why I bring that up is
It's a
because
nasty
Michigan was our rivalry at Illinois
Sure.
all the years I was there. Why?
Oh,
Because they
really?
thumped us every single year. No. See, that's the thing. Michigan was our rivalry. We weren't Michigan's rivalry.
okay, and I didn't even know Illinois considered Michigan a rivalry. I did not know that, and I cover the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Wow.
You always consider the team that is
Okay.
at the stop gate for you getting to where you want to be
Okay.
as the rivalry. And of course, Michigan's programs with Bo Schembechler,
Mm-hmm.
they were the standard, and they were the team we had to beat every single year. And we failed on that mission every single
Yeah.
year, except for my senior year. They tied a field goal in the Big House to tie us 17-17, and that's how the game ended.
Mm.
That's the closest I've ever come to beating a Wolverine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It sure doesn't make it fun, though, guys, when it's one-sided for that long, right? It just doesn't make it as fun to cover because you just know if one team's dominating, it's just like, okay, cool. Like, it's a rivalry for that team still, but it's like you kind of don't have a lot of hope. That's why I love it, this rivalry right now between Alabama and Tennessee, because I feel like either team can win it.
There are different generations that prioritize different rivalries in any fan base, and the same could be said for Alabama because people my age who are Alabama fans hate LSU, I feel like, more than they hate Tennessee. But then all of their parents detest Tennessee more than anybody else, and other than Auburn, obviously, because that's the in-state rivalry, and Tennessee's in-state rivalry is not its most important with Vanderbilt because that one is kind of a one-sided rivalry. I mean, that's one thing I noticed when I moved to Knoxville when I was a kid for 1 year, and then we moved back. Before the Vanderbilt game, nobody in Knoxville cared about the Tennessee-Vandy game. Nobody. It was just another game that you play. Whereas here, it was a big deal for those of us who grew up Tennessee fans in Nashville because we knew other people who supported Vanderbilt. Funny thing is, most of those kids ended up going to Tennessee. But anyway,
Couldn't get into Vandy.
If you go down to Tuscaloosa, though, and because they lived in Nashville,
it's tough to get in there
because they don't admit people who are
in-state.
because they don't admit people who are from here.
Oh, is that the rule?
It is
100%.
It's really, really tough. Davis Nolan's daughter.
Take your liberal arts education from somewhere in California and then go be an art history major. See how that works for you in the world.
Well, Davis
Good
Nolan
Lord.
at News 2, his daughter goes to Vandy, and she was one of the very, very few that is from, this area that was able to get in. So he was telling me the same thing.
That's a funny conspiracy.
No, it's true. I mean, I lived it.
Will you? Come on,
Not like I
man.
wanted to go there.
There are tons of band
I was
graduates.
just fine with the Tennessee journalism degree, but
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
But anyway, if you go down there to Tuscaloosa this Saturday, you'll see how much of a rivalry it is to those Alabama fans. It is. They'll all have their cigars, and I would imagine they'll probably be smoking those cigars before the game is over.
I do know this, that there has been no other team that has beat Alabama overall more than Tennessee. And
That's true.
From the series.
That's
beginning.
crazy.
Yeah.
Same way in basketball with Tennessee, Kentucky. It's like Tennessee lives in an interesting existence where its top rival in football and basketball is the power traditionally in that sport. Yet they have beaten that power more than anyone else in the conference. Which is why we are the way that we are. But anyway, it's going to be a good one and certainly a big test for a Tennessee team that is trying to win in some different ways. We'll get into that throughout a lot of the morning. And like Brad mentioned, Brent Hubbs of VolQuest will join us, as he always does, here on Friday mornings at 7:20. Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, stops by to hit the Titans bye-week headlines at 8:20 this morning. Sammy Kincaid of MyTV 30, who will be down on the field for another big Friday Night Rivals matchup tonight. She will join us at 8:45. And Andy Staples of On3 previews a massive college football weekend at 9:20. I feel like it is redundant to say that it's a massive college football weekend because once you get to the end of October, they're pretty much all big.
Oh, yeah. Especially, getting deep into conference play and kind of separating yourselves within the conference. That's certainly what's happening in a lot of these conferences, including the Power Fives.
Well, at this point, we know who these teams are, right? I mean, I don't
Pretty
know.
much. You should.
At the very beginning of the season, when Florida State and LSU
Right.
squared off, if you thought that Florida State was going to be the team that they are now, a ranked team, a legit team, but they are and they have arrived. But what did that say for LSU? I mean, they're still hanging around too, but it was a boat racing to begin with.
And you still do kind of wonder. I think, I still have some questions about Tennessee. I still have some questions about Alabama. That's why a game like this is so big to really see, okay, what direction are you going to take this? Because there's still teams that are growing. And Nick Saban said it the other day. I think he was on the Pat McAfee show, kind of describing it. This is one of the teams that's been probably not the toughest, but the one that he's had to develop the most with the youth on this team. And it was interesting to hear him talk about that because it has been a progress. Jalen Milroe has been somebody who has gradually had to kind of get better as the weeks have gone on.
Yeah, I don't look at Jalen Milroe like I looked at Tua or Jalen Hurts.
No.
Or even Mac Jones. It just seems that I'm not saying that he's less qualified. It just seems that Nick Saban seems to need to pour more into this young man than he has previous quarterbacks. And we know how important the quarterback position is, right?
Mm-hmm.
615-737-1045 is our number. Coming up, we got a close scout of the defending AFC South champion Jacksonville Jaguars last night. It still feels a little weird to say, as they take down the New Orleans Saints in dramatic fashion. We'll recap that one and ask the question as well, how far are the Titans behind that Jacksonville team? They got the job done in a difficult road environment in primetime last night. That's next on your Friday morning, RKW.
It's Ramon and Will for Kellum Stem Cell Institute, man. Will, I'm here to tell you guys I got my appointment set up for Monday to go ahead and get my procedure done, man. That's for my knees and the low back. I'm here to tell you, I don't care if you're on your feet all day long working construction. You can be a teacher. You can be an athlete. Young, old, doesn't matter. These are treatments that are proven to work and get that inflammation out of you, Will.
And Ramon, the biggest thing that we need to tell the people about Dr. Kellum is, he's a renowned orthopedic surgeon who has now devoted his career to this leading-edge holistic healing therapy. But this guy is as good as it gets, and you're going to love getting to know him and the entire team at the Kellum Stem Cell Institute. Remember this website, KellumStemCellInstitute.com. Dr. Kellum, a man of high moral and ethical values. He's only going to treat patients he believes he can help. He's worked with professional athletes around the world, including Olympic Team USA, and he can take away your pain and chronic issues in your joints as well. Check him out online, KellumStemCellInstitute.com. That's KELLUM StemCellInstitute.com.
The Savage Show is going on the road this weekend to Tuscaloosa. Ron, Slay, and myself are headed to the Tennessee versus Alabama live thanks to Sailor Jerry Rum, Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, and Elliott Boots, okay? I'm here to tell you, you can watch us or listen from the comfort of your home, provided you've had your fall tune-up from Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. As Savage and myself go see the Vols in Tuscaloosa this weekend, okay? You heard me right. We're going into the Lions Den to see if the Vols can get 2 in a row against the Tide, okay? While we're going at it, it's a must to have all the essentials, and that means Sailor Jerry's Rum, made the old school way with 92 proof with all natural spices and flavors. And what is the third Saturday in October without the proper footwear, okay? Whether it's work boots, hiking, or a little style, okay? Elliott Boots will get you covered. So watch us this weekend as the Vols take on the Tide to see if they can get 2 in a row. And simply put, go Vols!
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast right here on 104.5 The Zone. 8th and Roast Coffee cultivates community by the cup. You can find your favorite retail bag in every local Kroger and Whole Foods as well. 615-737-1045, our number. Streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV. YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, or Twitch with Brad Hopkins and Kayla Anderson. I'm Will Bowling. We'll get to Saints and Jags last night. I'll be honest, guys. I turned this game off. With the Saints getting down by as much as they did. And then I woke up and they figured out how to play offense.
Yeah.
Overnight.
It was just like that, too.
Yeah.
Right. I did have over 4.5 receptions for Alvin Kamara, and I think he hit that on the first drive. So I was happy with that. But
That's good. I know Trevor Lawrence is my fantasy quarterback, so I was waiting all day to see if he was going to play because they were going to test him right before. Obviously, he played and actually played quite decent with having that supposed knee injury or sprain.
Yep. So we'll get to that here in a minute. But first, we'll go to the phones where Eric is in Nashville, 615-737-1045. What's up, Eric?
Rocky top of the morning, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody?
Great. Good to hear from you.
Oh, yeah. It's been a minute. I've had other things going on. But, hey, I'm ready for tomorrow. I'm driving down tomorrow morning. I'm going to be in there. I'm going to get my cigar when I get off work this
Nice.
afternoon. Hey, and think about this. In 3 years, we're going down to Tuscaloosa, and if you just take the names off of the logos and everything else, there's not much difference between Tennessee and Alabama right now. You know what I mean? Milton's 61% completion, Milrose 64. Both teams, Alabama doesn't run the football as well as we do, but they're both top two in the SEC in sacks and tackles for loss. But they give up a lot more sacks than we do, and they got a freshman left tackle, right tackle. James Pierce is going to eat. He's been eating up freshman tackles the last 2 ball games. I think he's going to do it again. And again, it's a testament to what Josh Heupel has built, and I believe in this football team, this football program, because of what Heupel. If you go back, he has said there are teams in the country. Everybody wants to win. There are a number of teams that go into every game hoping to win, and there are the good teams that go into every game expecting to win. I think he's got this program to where these kids, they go in there and they expect to win. You're not going to win every game, but you go in there expecting to win, knowing you can win and beat and play with anybody in the country. And look, Joe's got to play better. Wide receivers got to play better. They got to catch the football when he actually puts it on them. Can't drop any more wide open passes, and Joe's got to be on point. But I believe in it. And you know what? Let's go down there. Let's whip their tail. I don't care if we win bowling shoe ugly like we did last week. At the end of the day, I don't care if we have the number 1 offense in the country or whatever. At the end of the day, do we have more points than they do? And I believe we will. Go Balls!
Let's go, Eric. Attaboy.
Nice
Love
call.
that. Enjoy the trip as much as one can.
Right?
No, it's actually not a bad trip down there.
No, it's like 3.5
Yep.
or so. I think we forget, you guys, too, in this time of NIL and all of that, where players are getting paid, and rightfully so, still just how much coaching is important. Like how rare it is to find these coaches that can consistently continue to have teams come out and execute like Nick Saban has in the past. I mean, even Dabo Swinney is having difficulty now, right? And he found success for a big stretch of time there at Clemson. But it's so much more now with the NIL and the transfer portal. There's so much more that goes into coaching. And to find that consistency, I think, is getting tougher.
I think nowadays these athletes are having to look in the mirror and say, what's more important, the money that I can make here while I'm in school, or maybe the advancement or the development of my craft? Mm-hmm. Okay, and those are 2 different conversations. And sometimes a player's situation can determine that. It dictates what that decision is, right? You're married, or you got kids, or families that are in underserved communities, and you feel it's your responsibility to give back and make sure that they're safe. You make a decision that's accordingly. Versus, you know what? Everything's great at home. Got a great life. Been great to this point. I want to see if I can get as good as I can be. Let me go where, at my position, they're really coaching these guys up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, Kayla.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of these coaches that have, had the luxury of having guys that weren't going anywhere because they didn't have options. And so coaching them up wasn't that hard. But nowadays, that has to be part of the equation also. Am I making these kids better?
Yes. Yeah.
It is crazy. I'll tell this story really quickly, and we'll get to Jags and Saints. The last time Tennessee beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, I was in the building, and I was 6 years old. 6 years old. I don't like to age myself very much sometimes on the show because, for whatever reason. But it was 51-43 in 5 overtimes that day. And I was there with my dad and my brother, and that was the famous game. I know I've told this story before, but I'll quickly tell it again, that things were so dire for Tennessee at one point, facing a 4th and long in a critical situation before James Banks came up big for the Tennessee Volunteers, where I literally looked at my dad and my brother. I was like, guys, there's always Waffle House after the game.
Wow.
There's always Waffle House.
Guarantee.
And that has literally been the line since October 25th, 2003, that we will give each other sarcastically now when Tennessee's like not off to a good start. It's like, well, it's always Waffle House. And where my dad and I went after Tennessee lost in Gainesville a couple weeks ago, Waffle House, somewhere outside Jacksonville.
All-star special here.
That's
there
right.
you go.
Absolutely.
Smothered or
So
covered.
you might find me,
Not or.
Right.
if Tennessee loses on Saturday after I broadcast Nashville SC and New York Red Bulls, you might find me at a Waffle House somewhere in Middle Tennessee.
There you go.
Or if they win, you might find me at a Waffle House.
Drowning your sorrows in waffles.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's the best.
Ooh, good hearty breakfast sounds good.
Well, last night, 31-24, the Jags are 5-2 after stumbling out of the gates a little bit. Their defense started the game well, and their offense was good enough to finish it 31-24 over the New Orleans Saints, who are now sub 500, which is maybe a little surprising as well. This was an interesting one, and I think for starters, guys, if Trevor Lawrence was in a lot of pain, you certainly couldn't tell.
No, especially after that second half scramble. I think, 30, 40 yards for the first down.
Big chunk of yards.
Looked good.
Yeah.
There was no limping after that. But then they didn't put him into that kind of situation where he needed to escape the pocket. He wasn't sacked at all. Maybe if he was sacked at all, I think it was in the fourth quarter once. But for the most part, he had a clean pocket to work with, right? Travis Etienne putting a couple of touchdowns on the board early.
He's kind of gotten it into gear, by the way.
Foye Aluakon, him scoring the touchdown in the second half. That they're scoring on defense, they're scoring on offense. Yep. They're really separating themselves. And, of course, the cascading boos in the stadium, right? Yeah. For Derek Carr throwing the ball out of bounds sometimes. You saw the frustration on his face. I thought that he was going to put Chris Olave in witness protection because my man, quit on a route one
Not
time.
happy
like,
with
what
that.
are you doing? And who feels worse for Foster Moreau?
Oh, man.
I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When they were trying to console him on the
Yeah.
sideline after the game, I saw one giant tear fall to the turf as he had his head bowed. And that really hit me right there. I was like, man, I know, dude. Right off your fingertips. The ball was perfectly placed. No real reason why you shouldn't have caught that. That was the difference in the ball game because they had scratched, fought, and clawed their way back into the game.
Right.
And they needed that crucial touchdown to tie it up because of what Christian Kirk did, right? The series before. What an amazing play by them guys.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And that's, you're right, though. It's all about making plays, right? You got to make them, especially in games like this where it could come down to that final play. And you look at this Jacksonville Jaguars team, Brad, I was telling Will and Ramon the other day, I just feel like they kind of started to get things together. Because, look, to start the season, we said this in the offseason, we said the Jags have a lot to live up to because they were getting all the hype in the offseason in terms of being the new team that's, in the mix and obviously the favorite to win the AFC South because Trevor Lawrence and what they did last year to end the season with the playoffs. But they didn't start that way, and it was a slow start for them. And I think we were questioning, are they really taking a step forward? Well, now it looks like they're doing things. They're finding ways to win games. ETN is getting going. That I feel like this is getting more difficult now as they continue to win games. You now look at the AFC South, and it's going to be tougher and tougher to catch this team.
Yeah, that was a defensive struggle, even though we saw, some points put up in the second half. It was the Saints' defense that kept it to at least a respectable level and allowed their offense to put together a couple of drives to get back into the game. Give credit, obviously, to Jacksonville's defense. I mean, I think that the Saints were 1-12 on third down
Right.
going into the fourth quarter almost. You're like, what? So, yeah, there was a
Both
lot of
teams weren't great on third down, I don't think.
Yeah, 3 of 18 New Orleans at the end of this one on third downs.
Wow.
It's hard to win a game doing that. It's also hard to win a game turning the ball over as much as Jacksonville did and still come
Still
out on
be in
top.
it. Yep.
I think the thing that worries me the most about this Jacksonville team from the Titans' perspective, in the short term and the long term, is they're showcasing that they can win shootouts and defensive struggles. Because this game was both.
Yeah.
This game at one point was a defensive struggle in the first half. They were able to keep New Orleans at bay, and New Orleans has something to do with that too. New Orleans is wretched on offense. I mean, the people that were wanting Derek Carr to be replacing Ryan Tannehill here, I don't know if that would have been the best idea, but Derek Carr does not look comfortable in that offense whatsoever. His wide receivers look like they've never practiced with him. So certainly they had a part in that too. But the second half of this one turned into a shootout. Jacksonville's still able to do enough to win the game. And yes, Foster Moreau's drop certainly helped. But how far behind Jacksonville is this Titans team right now? How big of a rebuild, reset, whatever it is it going to take to catch these guys? Because Kayla mentioned it. As slow as they started out of the gate, you look up and they're 5-2 and one loss by Detroit, Philly, or San Francisco, and they're having the same record as 3 of the teams that we consider are the top 3 in the NFL right now.
This is a different Jags team with Calvin Ridley on the field, period. I mean, he takes some of the attention away from Travis Etienne, who has been the balancing factor for that offense. And I didn't really know, Kayla, how fast Trevor Lawrence was. The dude could get down the road.
He's 6'5", you guys, just to put it in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he
a
can
cannon.
move. Yeah.
So if you're asking, where we are as far as having the pieces that can keep us competitive, I don't know that it's as solidified as it is in Jacksonville, because all the corners that they have, I mean, not corners legitimately, I'm talking about corners of the team, they're solid.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a solid offense. They have a get after it type defense, one that gets turnovers and puts the ball in the end zone. So anytime you have a scoring defense, it keeps the point differential down, right? So I would imagine they're in plus territory in that situation. And do they have all the skill positions on lock? I think so.
Yeah, I think that right now, just in terms of what you're going to get out of most of these skill positions, but more importantly, what you're going to get out of the quarterback. Even banged up with the knee, and I don't know how serious that was, guys, but you still saw what he did out there yesterday and was able to run the ball a little when he needed to. And I just think when you look at this team compared to the Jags team right now, the first thing I think of is the quarterback position and just what you can get out of it, right? And you look at all the pieces around him. Like I said, the skill positions are living up to what they're supposed to do too. Then defensively, I think they're just getting better. And one thing that this Titans team hasn't really been able to do is they've created some turnovers, guys, but they really haven't capitalized on a lot of the turnovers. And I know that they've said in the locker room, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jeffrey Simmons, they want more, right? They need to keep creating turnovers, but more importantly, trying to create something out of that. And I know that's sometimes hard to do when your offense isn't able to capitalize on that. And that's part of complementary football that I think right now the Titans are just missing that consistently game to game. You've seen it in a couple games, but that's about all.
In the F&M Bank chat, you can join the conversation on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch on 104.5 The Zone TV. AJ writes in, says the Titans are one quarterback away from Jacksonville. Do you agree with that?
Okay, so are you saying that because Ryan Tannehill might not be into the lineup because of an ankle, or are you saying Ryan Tannehill is the problem?
Knowing the comments we've had in the F&M Bank chat, I think it's that Ryan Tannehill is a problem, is what the comment is insinuating.
I don't agree.
Okay.
I think time in the pocket is a huge factor, because I think when you look at Malik Willis, when he got the sub, those last 5 reps, he was sacked 2/3 of the time they took a drop back. The same situation that Ryan Tannehill is contending with.
Right.
The same situation that re-aggravated the ankle. If you have pressure in the pocket, it limits your ability. Now, let's just say we had the luxury of 4 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think Ryan Tannehill looks like with that? In other words, routes able to develop, the explosive plays can happen if you have time in the pocket. And that's something that has not been a luxury in Tennessee.
And I know right now, if you look around the league, though, there are some quarterbacks with lines in front of them that aren't great, and some quarterbacks who are finding ways to get it done, right? But those are different types of quarterbacks, too. You can look at Miami, too, with Tua. I feel like that line hasn't been great, but Tua's been able to do some good things there. With that offense, obviously, he's got some great skill players as well. But the thing that I wonder about the Titans then is, what is the hope for this line this season then? Is it going to continue to build and find ways to get better, or is this what it is with this line? Because no matter who's behind the line, they're going to want some time to figure out how to, make a diagnosis of what's going on and have time to throw in the pocket. But if it's not going to get better, then that's probably bad news for this offense, right? So what do you think in terms of improvement?
Well, let's just say this. It's more than just the offensive line that helps in protection. Having some place to go with the football helps, meaning receivers getting separation. Mm-hmm. If they're playing zone, knowing where those creases are to sit down and make yourself available for the quarterback. Last night we saw Derek Carr under duress because of the issues that they were having up front, right? And in the second half, he started going to this, like one progression, two progression, balls out. One progression, two progression, balls out. Why? Because guys were getting open. Before that, he was holding on to it, one progression, two progression, sack, because there's nobody open. One progression, two progression, sack, nobody's open. He doesn't have the luxury of going through 3 and 4 different options if they take the first 2 away from him, right? So, in essence, it's a balance. The quarterback has to go somewhere with the football, right? And if he has that route readily available to him by guys getting open, then guess what? Protection is not an issue. Peyton Manning made a living in a 3-step drop. That thing was coming out quick. You couldn't get to him. He didn't have the best offensive line. Sure, he had some great players at points in his career in Indianapolis, but it wasn't like he had Anthony Munoz out there, you know what I mean, blocking and protecting him. So the balance of guys understanding what the route combinations are and how you're supposed to be and where you're supposed to be, quarterbacks trusting that you're going to be where you're supposed to be so I can release this thing rather than having to hold on to it for a couple of seconds and let things develop and then bam, I get hit. That's the issue. That is an issue. And, of course, the guys needing to win their one-on-ones on the outside and the guys need to win their one-on-ones in the trenches. Okay? So that's the thing that stands out to me because I only studied the game from where the ball was snapped.
Sure, right.
I didn't care what the receivers are doing because it doesn't make a difference if they're running these cool, crisp routes if the quarterback's on his back. Yeah. So I got to watch the turmoil up front and how much of pocket integrity the quarterback is having to work with. Mm-hmm. That's an issue.
And I think the excuse that you often use in college football when you say, all right, behind this bad offensive line, you need a quarterback who is more mobile and can run and can evade that rush. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's as accurate in the NFL when you're not the same speed as defensive back. You're not faster if you are Malik Willis than a lot of the guys coming after you. As a quarterback in college football, in even Power 5 conferences, you can play off script and off schedule so much more than you can in the NFL and just make something up on the fly. And there is some truth to that. I heard Greg Cosell on 3HL yesterday saying that the lack of protection for Malik Willis actually just further highlights his inadequacies as a quarterback and his inability to process information quickly because he's having to process more information more quickly because there are defenders in his face immediately when he gets the snap. Yeah. If he was a college quarterback right now with the same issues, you could make the argument, all right, put him back there. You've got a mobile guy who can just make 4 guys miss and get 10 yards every time if the play breaks down. But you don't have that luxury in the NFL. You're going to get him hurt if you do that.
You got to have dudes that are respected that, obviously predicate defense and what they do against us. So we'll talk more about it.
615-737-1045. More on that. More on NFL headlines across the league yesterday where one wide receiver says, trade me or don't trade me. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. We'll see where maybe Jerry Jeudy could fit among contenders in the NFL. That's next on RKW. Hey, what's going on? It's Will Bowling for my friends at Lee Company. Is your heating system ready for the cold weather of winter? We've had a little taste of that this week. It has been cold and freezing when we've gotten to the station. Weather in the 30s, 40s, early in the morning. Well, available 24/7, 365. The professional Lee Company team is here to help. Their technicians will perform a 22-point inspection, as well as seasonal cleaning and maintenance to keep your home running efficiently this fall and winter. Even better, save $20 on your next heating tune-up visit today. That's $20 off on your home's next heating service. You got to contact Lee Company for the very best heating service, and they do it all for you. 615-567-1000 or online at leecompany.com for an appointment to keep your home's heating in check. That's $20 off on your next heating service with my friends at Lee Company. Online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need.
So this is a small bird, too, for
That's
someone
right.
that's never seen a
Yeah.
bob white before. It's this little round softball.
That's right. Yeah, they're not much bigger than my fist. They've got little legs, but they're a ground nesting, ground dwelling bird. If they never have to fly in their life, they wouldn't. Right? They just do that to get away from hawks and owls for the most part, or hunters. What they need is largely herbaceous plant communities. Right? So they need wildflowers. They need a small proportion of grasses. I don't need vast grasslands, right? I need stuff that most people would call weeds. Those are providing good brood cover, good nesting cover, a lot of insects, right? That's what chicks need to develop early.
Bridgestone Firestone is a quail focus
It
or
is.
focal area. So tell us a little bit why.
Yeah, it's largely because there are very few places that have wild quail in the state of Tennessee anymore. And there's dozens of different factors that lead into that, right? Everybody wants to jump right to predators, but it's a habitat issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a landscape change, whether we're talking about development or whether we're talking about fire not being on the landscape anymore, or fields and young forests progressing into closed canopy forest, right? So the farm, just by nature of it being an open landscape that's been maintained that way, has held on to some birds. And compared to most other places in the state, we're one of the very few. On top of that, the potential for growing that population, it's higher here than just about anywhere else.
Years ago, we opened our doors with one mission in mind:
We'll be right back with the top 10 songs of 1983.
to sell quality American-made vehicles at a fair price.
You have arrived.
And we've loved every minute of the ride. Celebrating 40 years of Two Rivers Ford.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast right here on 104.5 The Zone. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to more Titans conversation. Get to Brad Hopkins' biggest question about the Titans at the bye week. Could be quarterback, could be left tackle. Feels like there are a lot of options to choose from, and we'll bring Brad in on the conversation we had yesterday about the Titan most likely to be traded as the show continues today as well. 615-737-1045 is our number if you want to jump in. Guys, Denver Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy says, trade me or don't trade me, doesn't matter. Says, I'm still going to be me. Guy that had career highs in catches last season, 67 catches for 972 and 6 touchdowns as well, has been the subject of trade speculation. And told the Denver Post, you can be open, but if the line don't do their thing, or the quarterback don't do his thing, or the offensive coordinator don't put you in a good spot, it's a whole lot of stuff that you've got to go through as a receiver to be successful. I can't really worry about it.
Are we now best friends? Jerry Jeudy, are we best friends? Because you called out your quarterback who I just cannot handle, Russell Wilson.
That's not your job, Kayla. You don't be calling out your
We're best
boys.
friends.
So who is going to employ Jerry Jeudy after the trade deadline? That's the next question.
I'm being just,
I think Jerry Jeudy and James Harden are having coffee right now, hanging out someplace in the same section. You know, think about go back to what Stevie Smith Sr. did at the last game that they played in, right? They got in a fight because Stevie called him a jag, just a guy. And that's not normally how we look at Jerry Jeudy. When you look at weapons that Russell Wilson was to have at his disposal, that was a thumbs up. That was a guy that was supposed to be really make a difference. Mm-hmm. You know, but he's no who's the big monster up there in Seattle? I can't remember. Why is his name escaping me?
DK Metcalf?
Yes. He's no DK Metcalf. He's no Tyler Lockett, these kind of guys that Russell Wilson usually had at his disposal. And the move proved to be a little more perilous than Russell thought to be in the initial. So things aren't warm and fuzzy in Denver. And it hadn't been before Russell even got there. Mm-hmm. So the fact that Jerry Jeudy may have felt him being an underused talent, that might have led to the frustration. Us making fun of the Broncos, them getting boat raced, letting 70 points get put up on them by the Dolphins, things like that. It just kind of lends to a funky atmosphere in the building. Mm-hmm. And it's easy for those that are less mentally tough to check out.
Yeah, and look, Jerry Jeudy, you don't call out anybody. Look, I wouldn't do that as a professional. I would probably just keep it in-house. However, I think the frustrations, that just goes to show what the frustration levels are right now. You saw the offensive lineman for the Broncos several games ago in his locker, like almost crying because they hadn't won games or haven't won many games since he's been there. And look, it's you put the blame on everybody, absolutely. But I think this whole notion of you're going to bring in a savior quarterback in Russell Wilson last year, that didn't work. Okay, so maybe it didn't work because of the head coach, right? So you ship him off. And you bring in, a proven head coach in Sean Payton. And you bring him in, and then he's kind of like saying things that I probably would think Russell Wilson wouldn't be enjoying him saying out in the public. I think it's a crap show over there. I think there's so much going on behind the scenes that then displays what the product is on the field.
Sure, Sean is a proven coach, right? But there's a reason why he's no longer in New Orleans. The head coaching gaffe that has taken place in Denver has also been a problem. You can't appoint someone to the head coach and all of a sudden him start delegating his responsibilities to other people because he's inadequate at doing his job. Okay, so we saw that experiment get put to the side. In comes Sean to win the locker room. He did not win the locker room. As a matter of fact, he kind of made it even worse. Yeah. You know, as a matter of fact, being public about his sentiments about the last regime or whatever else, kind of putting a standard on yourself as to what this team was supposed to look like, and it didn't look like that. Mm-mm. So there's a lot of blame to go around. Let's just say that. It ain't all just Russell Wilson.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So I understand the frustrations. I've been on teams that we won the first game and lost all the ones in between and won the last one. and you know what? It's a miserable feeling. It's a miserable feeling. But those that don't think about, checking out, those that don't think about, catching the next thing, smoking out of town, you live through it. You live to fight another day, and things will eventually come around because everything is is cyclical. Let's just say that.
Who's in the worst situation right now? New Orleans, long term, or Denver? Because I saw this from Jason of Over the Cap last night. If the Saints cut every player on their roster in 2024 that had a positive salary cap savings, they would only create $15 million in cap room. They are currently $85 million over the cap for 2024.
Whoa.
Sweet Jesus.
Oh, my. And next year, they're not even.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
for next year, they are $85 million over the cap.
Because I'm thinking about the Titans situation. They're in a great situation. Then it's like the opposite of the Saints are still trying to dig themselves out of a hole when Sean Payton, remember, was there and knew that this was kind of happening.
The whole the cap isn't real thing, don't listen to anybody who says the cap isn't real. The cap always comes back to bite you. Always. Yeah. I don't know who I would rather be at this point.
I don't either.
Probably would rather be Denver. They at least have a first. They have their first round pick again this next year, which is probably going to be for Caleb Williams or Drake May, if I had to guess. 615-737-1045. More Titans questions coming up. We'll bring Brad into the conversations we've been having this week in the bye week and see the biggest question Brad needs answered about this Tennessee Titans team coming out of the bye. That's next on RKW.
What's going on, 701? Happy Friday and good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Last night, Thursday Night Football, Jags stopped the Saints on 4th down from 6 yards out to win it 31-24. Trevor Lawrence's knee looked fine to me as he rushed for 59 yards, 8 carries. He was the Jags' leading rusher. The Jags move on to 5-2, remain number 1 in the AFC South. Big game this weekend with no Titans football. Number 17, Tennessee, taking on number 11, Alabama. If you're out and about on Saturday, you can always check out the game right here on 104.5 The Zone. Pre-game coverage starts at 12:30, and they're going to take you all the way up to kickoff at 2:30. And in Carolina, Panthers wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr. has requested permission to seek a trade. Carolina discussed the matter with his agent as the player seeks a more prominent role. He's welcome back if no trade is found. The former second-round pick has 104 catches for 742 yards and 1 touchdown since 2021. Another name to watch as the trade deadline approaches. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome to hour number 2 on a Friday morning edition of RKW. We are brewed, as always, by our friends at 8th and Roast. Go by and see them over here at their brand new location over by Vanderbilt. You can check them out there, 8th Avenue, Charlotte, in the airport as well, or pick up your favorite bag of coffee grounds at your local Kroger or Whole Foods here in Middle Tennessee. We've got Brad Hopkins filling in for Ramon Foster this morning. Kayla Anderson, present and accounted for. Robert Walsh behind the glass. My name is Will Bowling. Coming up in 20 minutes, VolQuest's Brent Hubbs, the best person to preview Tennessee and Alabama on this beautiful Music City Friday morning. A Friday, and guys, we're acting like it. That is right. All the workers. 615-737-1045 is our number. Good morning for a little bit of Sir Charles Jones.
Love it. The Titans won't be on the practice field today with that, so we will bring that to the people, the listeners.
That's right. That is right. Just think of last week, Kayla, how jet-lagged we felt in London doing the show an hour in.
It's funny you said that, Will, because I was driving to work today, and I said, you know what? At this time last week, we would have been in London. And I go, wow, this week has actually flown by.
It's gone quick.
Which is crazy to think, because we flew on Monday.
We would have been somewhere underneath the ground, literally, on the tube in London. A couple hours ago this time last week. Brad, we've talked a lot about questions for this Titans team going into the bye week. There was one question from Brian on YouTube, watching in the F&M Bank chat on 104.5 The Zone TV. I thought was an interesting one as it pertains to left tackle and the carousel that position has been already for the Titans this season. Asking if Peter Skoronski is someone you could get ready to play left tackle in a bye week and have the opportunity to put Dylan Radins back at left guard. Is that something that you would entertain if you were the Titans coaching staff going ahead and putting Skoronski at left tackle, or are you more inclined to keep him where he is?
Would that slow his development would be my next question. In other words, I think he's finding some consistency at left guard. Now, that's the only position that he's played professionally, so I understand that. But if that's where you figure he's going to be, say, for the remainder of his career, in other words, if you've drafted the next Mike Munchak, who played left guard for 12 years, then there's no need to do that. Can you, at some point, find people to complement his game on the outside? Sure, that's something that you're going to have to do either way.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody available right now that's a quality tackle. Why would a quality tackle be available? It doesn't make sense. That's a premium nowadays.
You're right.
And anybody that's got a good tackle, he's under contract and is going to be under contract for a long time. He's not going anywhere. They'll pay through the nose for protection, and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand the carousel of sorts, finding that consistency. And that's been something that has plagued this team, maybe because of the mix of the flip-flops up front. And that would be my concern. If you were to ask me that question, Will, that would be it simply, not because I'm a lineman, but simply because that's where the play starts. And when I watch simple things like being able to pass off a linebacker stunt, looking at the TTs, that's two tackles twisting in the front, or tackle, they call them Texases, when the tackle slants and the end goes around. El Paso, when the end slants and the tackle goes around. And when these are problematic for a team, it's usually because there's a lack of communication or lack of understanding in the play design itself on the blocking scheme. So they have to be more consistent up front. That's not an option. Is that a Jimmy's and Joe's situation? How about this? When you've got 2nd and 1, to me, I'd like to just maybe get that first down, getting that yard, and continue another set of downs, so that way I can hope to move the sticks. It's a luxury to be able to go deep and have someone come up with the football, but if that turns into an incompletion or a sack or a loss of yards because you're not consistent up front, then that's a problem. There are a couple of instances where Ryan Tannehill, in my opinion, could have made a better decision what to do with the football. If he sees Derrick Henry in the flat as a check down after his third progression, but he decides to go deep and it ends up in a pick because he can't put anything on it because of the ankle injury, that's decision making. Maybe it's greedy. Mm-hmm. But I think finding that flow, finding that rhythm that doesn't put that line that you already know is problematic in protection, you don't want that to be something that they have to deal with.
Yeah.
I mentioned in the first segment when we first started the ability for Peyton Manning to take advantage of his knowledge of the offense, where he's going with the football, and his accountability and trust in the receivers he was throwing to. That was covering up for the issues he had up front. He didn't have, put it this way, going up against Javon Curse, Kevin Carter, all these dudes, he didn't have seconds to throw back there.
Right.
He had milliseconds to throw back there. So guess what he did? He adjusted his game accordingly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that you can do to cover up protection, but you still have to have the bodies up front that are consistent, that can do it. And that's something that they're still trying to figure out.
Well, I think for this line right now, I don't think the Titans are willing to move Peter Skoronski just because they're trying to find some cohesiveness first and foremost.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been none of that this season. The right side, yes. But the left side, because of the Andre Dillard, type of experiment, I guess you would say at this point, they didn't find consistency with that. And then you had Peter Skoronski going through the appendectomy, so he was out a little bit. And then now you have Nicholas Petit-Frere, who has now come in and had some live game reps at left tackle. And now the question is, will he be the new left tackle? And what will we see with that chemistry on that left side if that is the case with Peter and him start to build? Because the run game, at least the small sample size we saw in terms of the run blocking, that was pretty good in the Ravens game when NPF came in. Now, the pass blocking is still a different story, but is this going to be the new formula, Brad, moving forward, or do they go back to Dillard for some reason?
Well, I saw some things in Dillard's game that I would have addressed with him. He's very, very quick getting off the football, which is something that you have to be, right? Using the snap count to your advantage, especially when you know what it is. Mm-hmm. But when you keep drifting back, and here comes the guy that sees you just a few feet from the quarterback, he's just going to come straight down the middle of you and push you right back into the quarterback. You helped him in that instance. We slid protect. Slide protection is when you don't protect against the guy, you protect against the gap. You know where your protection is. So let's just say this. Let's say that the strong side is where the tight end is on the line of scrimmage, okay?
Okay.
And we usually slid away from the strong side, which meant that the strong side had protection because you had two dudes, a tackle and a tight end, that were protecting against that strong side defensive end. I would usually be on the open side blocking against the guy by myself, allegedly. In other words, I knew that if I jumped to this defensive end's outside, there's only one place that defensive end could go, right? And that's inside. Guess who's waiting for him to come inside? Bruce Matthews. He's ready to knock your teeth off when you come inside. And I played that. I played that to my advantage because I knew we were sliding my way and where I was protected. And also, it took care of all the zone blitzes. It took care of a lot of different stuff because if a guy came into the gap, we would just say squeeze. The end guy on the line of scrimmage would then be booked. The quarterback would hear you say squeeze, knowing that guy right there is a hot guy. He's coming. I got to get rid of this football. And if that guy's coming and the blitzer's coming, that means that somebody's open in the zone, right? Somebody's open in their route. If you win your matchups one-on-one, then the quarterback has some place to go with the football. I'm just saying maybe by play design, by blocking scheme, you could do things to cover up being one. Why in the heck would you have Myles Garrett being blocked by one person?
I know. Well, that's still a
That
question.
don't make no sense to me.
Crazy.
No.
So in essence, I could do a lot. Look, if I was blocking Myles Garrett, I could maybe jump him in a slide protection, knowing that the only place I can get beat is on my outside, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to make sure that I widen that pocket, just tip him off of that angle that he's trying to get to the quarterback at. I can use those things to my advantage. But also the biggest thing is staying out of those down and distances that are typically unmanageable. There's not a lot in the pocket, in the playbook rather, for 3rd and 15, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12. So stay out of those situations by giving up negative plays in the beginning. That helps. Those first two plays, that helps determine what you're going to do on 3rd down.
We'll get back to your phone calls coming up at 7:45 this morning. But next, we bring in Brent Hubbs of VolQuest.com into the conversation. His analysis of Tennessee and Alabama. And guys, I hate it, but the closer we get, the more hope I have. It's really unfortunate. We'll see if Brent Hubbs can talk me off the ledge coming up next. It's RKW brewed by 8th and Rose right here on 104.5 The Zone. Former Titan Brad Hopkins filling in for Ramon Foster this morning. Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, I'm Will Bowling. And every Friday at 7:20, we catch up with VolQuest and On3's Brent Hubbs. And there is a pretty big one to preview with Brent this morning down in Tuscaloosa. What's up, Brent? How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys this morning?
Good.
Brent, I'm okay. I told Kayla and Brad before the break, the closer we get to kickoff, the more hope that I have in Tennessee's chances in Tuscaloosa. That's never a good thing, Brent, when I have hope.
All right.
Kind of a dark way to start the morning.
All right.
You're bringing the good
I know.
vibes. This is an interesting matchup. Because it's not the style of game anybody anticipated it being. A year ago it was a shootout, last team to have the ball. Nobody could stop each other. This feels like it's got an old school vibe to it, field position, defense, defensive fronts, front seven, stop the run game type deal. Alabama's won a ton of games like this. Josh Heupel's won one when he scored less than 30 points in a game, and that was last week. So those things point towards Alabama. At the same time, too, Alabama's offensive front has struggled to protect the quarterback. Tennessee's been great getting after the quarterback. And Tennessee, even 2 years ago, for 3 quarters, was competitive against Alabama down there. So you're thinking if Tennessee can get the staple of their program, which has been their offense, with a little bit more of a pulse, then, yeah, they can go down there and win this game. And I think Tennessee could be in this game in 4 quarters and certainly have a shot to win the game down there. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So I'll give you a little reason for some hope this morning.
Right. Yeah, you're becoming very familiar with my my battered Vol syndrome that is in my blood for the last 26 years, so all of my life, Brent. But it is interesting when you look at this matchup, just how similar the two teams are, right? And reading Rob Lewis's posts on VolQuest.com, the defense is giving up a similar amount of yards and points per game. And isn't it just incredible how similar Jalen Milroe and Joe Milton are at this point of the season? I mean, Brent, are we ever again going to see a Tennessee and Alabama matchup under Josh Heupel and Nick Saban where the two teams are this similar?
I don't know. And certainly not similar in this style, you wonder. What's the interesting things, I mean, both teams have been penalized 48 times. Alabama's got, I think, 10 touchdowns and their 20 trips into the red zone. Tennessee's got 10 touchdowns in their last 22 trips into the red zone. So both teams are struggling to finish drives. There are a lot of similarities beyond personnel field. There's some statistical similarities in the way that these teams have played and the struggles they've had along the way. So it does feel like a very evenly matched game in that regard. Now, what's Bryant-Denny Stadium worth? I don't think Nick Saban's lost a home game in October. He's something like 4, or some crazy number like that. I mean, they've been great, obviously, in Bryant-Denny Stadium. So it's a challenge, but this is not one of those deals where Tennessee's going to get on a plane today and everybody around Tennessee is going to go, well, let's see how bad this is going to be. This is a game where you get on the plane and go, you know what? Absolutely could play with them. Got to play better, got to clean some stuff up, but can absolutely play better because we're similar. We match up well in some spots, and should be a fun one Saturday afternoon.
Brent Hubbs joining us now on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. And Brent, coming into the season, when you looked at that Alabama offensive line, it looked like it was supposed to be one of the best in the country, allowing 31 sacks on Jalen Milroe, incorporated with some of the other quarterback play we saw earlier this season. In your eyes, Brent, how can this Tennessee defensive front, who has been playing really well, take advantage of that?
Well, they got to get them in third and passing situations. Tennessee's got to get Alabama on possession downs, and then they can turn things loose. So Tennessee's got to be really good on first and second down, and make third down, a throwing down. 3rd and 5 for Alabama is a really good play because really then Jalen Milroe's feet can come into play. Although he's been a reluctant runner the last couple of weeks, I think he's been a little banged up. But when you have that kind of player, a guy who could run and do some things, you really got to play your rush lanes well. But Tennessee's got to get them in passing situations, and then you can turn James Pierce loose and Tyler Barron loose, and you can run your twist in some of your games up front and do some different things that you've had great success doing. That defensive front's got 20 of Tennessee's 24 sacks this season. So they've been able to get home with 4, which will be a key in this game because you want to make Jalen Milroe read the field behind you, play some zone, disguise some coverages, do some different things like that, and not just have to play man-to-man because you're bringing extra people. So Tennessee's got to take advantage of another freshman offensive tackle. This will be the 3rd straight week that James Pierce has gone up against a freshman offensive tackle. He succeeded very well the last 2 games with that, 3 sacks, 9 quarterback pressures. Tennessee's playing well up front. They've got to play great up front on Saturday.
When it comes to Joe Milton, Brent, and you can't just put it all on him, right? And I know Ron Slay was in here the other day, and he was saying he needs to see more from these wide receivers. When you have the opportunity right now, you got to make the most of it. How important is that coming into this game where every time you got an opportunity, you got to try to make a play?
Well, I mean, Joe's got to make the easy plays.
Sure.
The more routine plays, better. So some of it is on Joe, obviously. I mean, when you open the game with an out and, you airmail that by 5 or 6 yards, to start the game. You throw a slant to Ramel Keaton in the 3rd quarter and it's way behind him. I mean, the simple plays Joe's got to make better. He doesn't have to be extravagant or phenomenal. He's just got to be really efficient and really good with the simple stuff. Conversely, the same thing with the wide receivers. When you get wide open, and they hit you in the hands, you got to catch the ball, which Tennessee's not done a good job of. And so it is a combination of things. And when the moment happens and the moment's available, you got to make a play, whether you're the receiver or the quarterback. Joe's got to see the field better. Red zone's a real challenge, I think, for both these teams, as I mentioned. But for Joe Milton, it's a challenge because you got to process faster. You got to get the ball out of your hands faster because you can't just line up and run it inside the 20 because you got more people in the box by nature, and your spread stuff's not as effective to spread everybody out, empty the box. So Joe's got to make quick decisions in the red zone, take care of the football better than he has the last 2 weeks. That interception he threw to Texas A&M was a really bad play. You can't have one of those on Saturday.
Not sure, Brent, if you were actually in attendance to Josh Heupel taking the podium yesterday addressing this weekend's game, but he said this football game, man, you got to win the line of scrimmage, and your personnel on the outside got to win one-on-ones. That's true on both sides of the football. So the line of scrimmage seems to be problematic here in the state of Tennessee, just kind of taking a shot. But having Cooper Mays back at center, that might help. What can the Vols do to make this a game? Is running the football the best way to keep Dallas Turner out of the backfield?
Yeah, listen, you got to be balanced in this deal. Everybody sees, 45, 48, 50 points the last 2 years with Josh Heupel, and they think it's the old, Andre Ware run and shoot. You're throwing it every play. And, this is a team that's run for over 2,000 yards each of the last 2 years. And it's a team that's leading the SEC rushing right now at over 200 yards a game. They have to be able to run it. And what they do from a schematic standpoint helps you run the football because you spread everybody out and you make teams decide. If you're going to load the box, then it's going to be man across the board. And if it's man across the board, that's where Josh Heupel's talking about you got to win the one-on-one matchup out there. If you're going to try to keep some safety help over the top, or you're going to try to, run some zone coverages, disguise some things on the back end, then that's when you get a light box. And when you get a light box, you got to run. And Josh Heupel's run game is not simple. They pin and pull, and they do a lot of different things schematically. But the biggest thing they do is they count numbers pre-snap. If it's 6 in the box on 3rd and 6, they have no problem running the football and running it effectively. So a lot of it's a numbers game. Can they get Alabama light in the box? If they can't, can they win on the outside when Alabama says, hey, basically, we're going to zero you up and we're going to play one-on-one, and we think our corners are good enough to defend all your wide receivers. So I think Alabama will play more heavier boxes to make it harder to run the football, which gets back to what we were talking about with the passing game. They've got to hit some stuff to try to soften that up a little bit. And if they do, then they can run the football like they did a year ago. They ran for 186 yards against Alabama a year ago. But in large part, that was because of some early passing game success that Tennessee had with Jalen Hyatt.
we know that this game is never about quarterback versus quarterback, Brent, because why? They're never on the field at the same time. But let's go there. Jalen Milroe versus Joe Milton. Besides the noise of being on the road, who has the more favorable matchup, Joe versus the Bama defense or Jalen versus the Vols defense?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think in the line of scrimmage up front, which you have to factor in, I like Tennessee's defensive front against Alabama's offensive line probably better than I like Alabama's defensive line against Tennessee's offensive line. I like Tennessee in the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball a little better. Here's the difference when you talk about quarterback versus quarterback. Jalen Milroe has been able to hit the deep vertical shot. He's been able to hit that big chunk play that Tennessee has struggled so mightily to hit. So Alabama can be off schedule a little bit. They can be kind of pedestrian, and then all of a sudden Milroe hangs in there, you bust a coverage, or you get beat one-on-one on the outside, and then suddenly you got a big play. And that's been a lot of Alabama's offense. So in this matchup, to me, with the quarterbacks, it's two things. One, who can make those vertical plays when the opportunity presents itself? Alabama's done a better job of that than Tennessee this year. Secondly, which quarterback's going to have positive yards out of this game? And I don't mean that they run it 12 times on design runs and, they run the option and keep it. I'm talking about when the defensive front wins, who escapes trouble and turns a 5-yard loss into a 2-yard gain? Who converts 3rd and 5 with their feet when everything's covered in the back end? That's going to be a key stat. Who can extend a drive at the quarterback position with their legs in this football game?
Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com, our guest this morning here on RKW. Brent, you guys wrote about it in the War Room about Tennessee getting healthier at the right time for this game. A couple of big contributors who could be back and healthy again, Omar Norman-Lott, Tadeko Slaughter, and Dante Thornton. What are their statuses for Saturday?
All of them are going to be – I think all of them will be available, and all of them will play. Norman-Lott's obviously the biggest one there because he's been one of Tennessee's most effective inside defensive linemen. They played well without him last week. Karak Garland had a terrific game for Tennessee. But when you're talking about rotating guys and one of your best guys gets back, then that's a big deal. And Omar Norman-Lott has been one of Tennessee's best defensive linemen. They've got 3 guys playing really well who have been really consistent all year. Bryson Easton, the last 3 games, has been fantastic for Tennessee. Amari Thomas has been really good all season long. And then Norman-Lott has played well. So, and there's not many schools in this conference who would say, hey, I want to keep my interior defensive line and not take yours. Tennessee's really good in that area. They got to push the pocket this week and not create any run lanes for the quarterback. That's going to be a real challenge. But they've got to get in Milroe's face. He's shown the ability and willingness to stay in there and take a hit, but you've got to get him uncomfortable, get him backing up a little bit if you can so he can't step into those deep throws. That's a big thing to watch with this inside line. So that's important. Slaughter's back, but Gabe Judy Lawler's playing really well. Gabe will start over Tadeko Slaughter. We'll see where he progresses there. Dante Thornton's got plenty of talent, but they need somebody at receiver to make a play. He's not been a real factor to this point. I don't know that suddenly the light bulb flips on and he has some kind of big-time game against Tennessee, but having some wide receiver depth is important.
Brent, with Elijah Herring doing a good job filling in for Keenan Peely at inside linebacker, it does feel like another game where the linebackers just getting Jalen Milroe on the ground when the play breaks down a little bit will be a huge key for this Tennessee defense. How much more confidence do you feel like Tennessee's staff has in its young linebackers? And is there any update at all on Keenan Peely and maybe him coming back late in the season? It feels like we haven't heard anything about him very much recently.
Yeah, Peely's rehabbing a bicep or a tricep injury, and I think if he gets back, it's going to be in November. He may have a decision to make as to whether or not he wants to come back or does he want to appeal and try to see if he can get another year. I'm not sure where he's at in his life in terms of does he want to play more football or is he ready to move on? That's a decision he has to make. But the earliest I think you could see him would be sometime in November. We'll see where that's at. Elijah's playing better. The one thing that they did a good job of defensively a week ago against Texas A&M is they did not give up one of those big runs. They didn't have a bad misfit in the run game. That's going to be key this week. Tennessee, gave up a long run to South Carolina. They gave up a long run to Florida. Obviously, they gave up a long run to the quarterback on 4th down to Austin Peay. They cannot have one of those misfits in the run game and let a running back get going and run off a 40 or 50-yard run on you because your linebacker misfits something. So I think Elijah's playing faster. Tennessee is trying to not play him as many snaps to keep him fresher physically and mentally. That's why you're seeing some Marion Carter. That's why you're seeing some Jeremiah Telander. I think that's probably helping Elijah a little bit, and I think you'll see that on Saturday when they can do that. But Elijah's got to play better on the road. He's got to communicate better than he did at Florida. Now, Florida was his first start. That game kind of got away from him in that second quarter. He got out of sorts. He can't get out of sorts, and those linebackers can't get kind of out of position and misfit some run stuff and give up a big splash play Saturday in this football game on the road.
Handling the environment, always something that teams have to do, especially in the SEC. But with this game in particular, Brent, when you look at that Florida game earlier on in the season, just probably didn't do the greatest job, right, handling that environment. How much did they learn from that? I mean, a good coach kind of has to take something from that, right?
Yeah, you're kind to say they didn't do a particularly good job. They were awful is what they were. They had 10 offensive penalties in that game on the offensive line. Way too many pre-snap penalties. You're hoping and you believe that Cooper Mays being back helps the communication up front. But as Josh Heupel has said this week, Tennessee's got to get settled into the football game. And I think when you're on the road, you're revved up, you got everything going, you have to get kind of, all right, deep breaths, settle in. It's not that loud. Let's do what we do. Let's communicate. One thing Tennessee has done since the Florida game, Kayla, is they've done more crowd noise more consistently, even when it's a home game, just to try to get it, as ready for this environment as they can to communicate better. That's on Joe. He's got to communicate. He's got to communicate fast. There were way too many times in that Florida game where the play clock's running down. They had to take 2 timeouts in the second half because they didn't communicate very well, very quickly up there. So sideline communication's got to be better. Joe's communication has to be better. Cooper Mays has got to get the line set and get going so they have time to make any adjustments they need to. They've just got to play cleaner up there is the bottom line. They've done everything they can with the crowd noise. And sometimes you just got to go do it, and that's what's got to happen on Saturday. This offensive line's just got to go do it.
He is Brent Hubbs, joining us every Friday morning here on RKW at 7:20. Brent, if you hear 2 guys with the sunroof down blaring Rocky Top on Saturday, that's just Ramon Foster and Ron Slay parading through Tuscaloosa. This is actually Ramon's first ever SEC road game as a fan. So if you see him, just make sure he's safe and has protection down there.
I dare anybody to say anything to them 2 gentlemen. I dare you.
Yeah.
So is he sleeping in because it's a long drive today?
No, I got him tied up, Brent. He's in the closet.
I mean, Brad, it's great to talk to you, but do we really have to take another day off to get ready? It's tomorrow at 2:30 Central Time. I mean, we got time, right?
I would go after him more, but I have 3 days off next week, so I'll plead the fifth on this one.
How you guys taking vacation in football?
I know. Well, it's the London jet lag, Brent. Right? There's a golf course near the beach calling my name maybe a little bit next week.
All right, guys, have a good one. This should be fun tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank you, Brent.
See you, B.
There's Brent Hubbs with us this morning. We'll take your phone calls in Tennessee and Alabama coming up next.
Hey, I got some good news. The future of joint pain relief is here. That is right. It is QC Kinetics. I've been talking all week about just kind of adjusting back to the time zone here after riding on that plane for 13 hours. My body, my joints, they're definitely aching. And this is a new advanced regenerative medicine, and it's amazing stuff, guys. It is Kayla Anderson, and you've been told maybe steroids or surgery are the only options. Don't be so fast. Get a second opinion and learn more about how you can harness your own body's healing agents to attack that joint pain that we all start to feel, especially as we get older. And I am talking about lasting relief, folks. QC Kinetics does not mask the pain. These treatments actually go to the very root of the problem, using concentrated healing properties placed directly into your joints. So maybe you're having problems with your knees, your hips, your shoulders, your back. This is the way to go with QC Kinetics. No drugs, no downtime, and best of all, guys, no surgery. Life is about motion, and QC Kinetics is giving people their lives back with these all-natural treatments. So for a free consultation, call QC Kinetics today. It's 615-249-4024. That is 615-249-4024.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast right here on 104.5 The Zone. And coming up in hour 3, voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, joins us. We'll also, in 15 minutes, get into the Michigan cheating scandal. Perfect way for Jim Harbaugh to audition for having an NFL job. Just be like Bill Belichick. Just spy. I don't know. I'm being a little facetious there.
He keeps
just a little
getting into trouble, though.
That's what I'm saying. Best way to go to the NFL. Just get in trouble in college and then, tuck your tail and head of the league. So we'll get to that.
Come on, man. Stealing signs is part of football, right?
I know.
And baseball.
I know. Zach in Hendersonville next. 615-737-1045. What's up, Zach?
Good morning, Will, Taylor, B-Hop, Bird Hawk.
What's
I
up?
just have a few things to say about some Bammers.
Please do.
Well, Mark, that suit don't fit Ingram.
Freaking bum.
Dang.
Julio, Titans legend, Jones.
Freaking bum.
Ouch.
Nick, Harry wears the pants, Saban.
Freaking bum.
Yes.
Oh.
And to Ramon's least favorite brother-in-law, Josh.
You damn sure ain't cute, man. You ain't handsome.
I just have a little poem for all the Bammers. Crimson Tide, Mama lied, she never tried. Family tree doesn't divide. Double wide, elephant's hide. Sister's mouth open wide. Doesn't matter. Balls by 50. Y'all have a good one. Go Vols.
Sweet Jesus, what
Zach
just happened?
in
Look
Hendersonville.
at Brad's face.
Absolutely amazing.
Oh, my
He
goodness.
always brings it.
He does.
This is why Zach is one of our finest.
Wow.
Yep, he does bring those poems.
This show actually has a lot in common with Alabama fans because we also didn't go to Alabama.
Oh, yeah. Because most of the fans are
No
not
one in this room went to
Alabama
Alabama. We've got that in common with most Alabama fans.
It took a
It took
second
me
for
a
me to
second,
see-
too.
I'm like, what?
There's a lot of Belmont and Lipscomb grads who are really nervous about their tie this morning.
Oh,
funny.
boy.
Spoken like a UT alum.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That is right. Jason in Murfreesboro is next. 615-737-1045, where you can join us. Hey, Jason.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Morning.
Hey, a few things I wanted to say. First of all, go Vols, and Joe Milton, man, be you. Stop listening to all this noise about you trying to live up to Hendon Hooker's hype. Just be you, man, and be accurate. And then with the Titans, I wanted to say something about the Titans right quick. Can y'all get how much money they have and to be able to spend on a free agent? Maybe grab another receiver. I know the Panthers just recently want to trade Terrence Marshall, but if we could get them for just for the penny and not have to do any draft capital, that'd be great. Somebody quick and they could pass to right off the ball, so we ain't got to worry about the line. And then finally, I want to say, man, I went to McDonald's this morning, and they got these fire sauces now. I don't know if y'all have tried them or not. Some spicy sauces. They got sweet and spicy jam,
Mango
spicy
something.
jam,
Ooh.
and a mambo, like a mambo, spicy ketchup or something. That stuff that'll light you up in the morning, man. Keep it going.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm gonna finish off with saying, it's Friday.
Oh, snap. Go
Whoa.
ahead. Go ahead.
I like that.
Look
He
at
didn't say it. He
that.
sung it. Nice.
Be careful. That comes out like it goes in.
That's right.
Do you guys think Terrace Marshall would be able to be obtained for the pennies that we've seen the other receivers go for this offseason?
Yeah.
Younger guy, still has years on his contract
Right.
left.
I do think at this point, I think the only move you would make for a wide receiver if you're the Titans is a pick swap where you at least get something back as well. But again, I mean, you have $11 million in effective cap space right now, the Titans, according to Spot Track. But ultimately, you're not going to do anything to really improve that room by someone who's just available on the street.
Right.
And then secondly, you're not going to do anything that takes up money for next year because you want to kind of reset this roster a little bit going into next year. So I would say the only move you would make would be the equivalent of what the Chiefs just got for McCole Hardman, where you essentially send a pick and you get McCole Hardman and a little bit later pick.
This ain't hockey, man. You just can't go get Reynolds and expect them to come in and all of a sudden perform as if they were starters. Takes time. It takes preseason. It takes consistency. It takes getting to know the guys that you're playing with. Too many moving parts to be just flipping them in and out like that. Anybody that's worth the salt is on a team and ain't going anywhere.
And just a reminder, everyone, Traylon Burks is expected to probably return this next week.
Hopefully.
So that's the plan, I think, for the Titans right now, is to get him back for the Falcons. Now, that's to be determined. Who knows day to day. But I think that was, in terms of if you wanted a timeline, that's the timeline we're kind of looking at for that.
Well, and that's just reading between the lines, too, saying that if he missed 3 games, they didn't put him on IR, that they expected to have him back within 4 games.
Right. And Mike said on Monday that he's going to be back kind of in the mix in terms of practice and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot on the line, too, here real quick. Oilers unis. Art Smith back in the building.
I forgot about the Oilers jerseys.
The guy that was called by a caller on Monday, Arthur Miller.
Yeah, supposedly
the writer of The Crucible.
We're saying some different names for players.
7th grade summer reading. The Crucible. Anyway. Coming up, we dive into this Michigan cheating scandal from Jim Harbaugh. We were talking about most hated college football coaches the other day. Feels like Jim Harbaugh might have a case to be on the conversation. Plus Mike Keith at 8:20. Halftime of the show coming up next.
I am joined now by certified arborist Dean Glasscock with Arbor Art Tree and Shrub, a Save a Tree company. And Dee, you guys offer so many incredible services, including full service tree and shrub care. Tell us more about what you guys offer there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you said it, full service. What's that mean? That means all the trees and shrubs around your home. I don't care if they're mature trees or they're ornamental trees. Even your boxwoods, all your woody ornamentals, just keep us in mind, 615-299-9999. Been around for 29 years and super proud of that. And ever since we partnered up with Save a Tree, it's just getting better. So we're fortified now to be able to serve you quicker. Before we were behind so much because it was just so hard to get people to come to work. But we've fixed that. We're always hiring, by the way. But again, 615-299-9999. We're always looking for good quality people. So again, Arbor Art Tree Care. We're a Save a Tree company now, but nothing's really changed. We're a full service tree care company, so it's all things trees. Again, 299-9999. Hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. That is 29 years of experience, Arbor Art Tree and Shrub. Now teaming up with Save a Tree for exceptional service every single time. Make sure you call them, 299-9999.
What's going on? 8 o'clock. Happy Friday from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Last night on Thursday Night Football, Jags stopped the Saints on fourth down from 6 yards out to win it 31-24. Trevor Lawrence's knee looked fine to me as he led the Jags in rushing, 8 carries for 59 yards. Jags moved to 5-2 and remain in first place in the AFC South. Big game this weekend with no Titans football. Number 17 Tennessee takes on number 11 Alabama. If you're out and about on Saturday, you can check the game out right here on 104.5 The Zone. Pre-game coverage starts at 12:30, and they'll take you all the way up to kickoff at 2:30. And in Carolina, Panthers wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr. requested permission to seek a trade. Carolina's discussed the matter with his agent as the player seeks a more prominent role. He's welcome back if no trade is found. The former second-round pick has 104 catches for 742 yards and 1 touchdown since 2021. And another name to watch as the trade deadline approaches. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Off and running into the second half of the show on a Friday morning edition of RKW. We are brewed by 8th and Roast. And coming up in 20 minutes, we bring voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, into the conversation. His perspective on the 2 options the Titans have not named Ryan Tannehill at the quarterback position going into next week's matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. And the biggest question marks facing the team in the open date as they get ready to don those Oilers unis against their former OC coming up next Sunday right here at Nissan Stadium. 615-737-1045 is our number. Streaming live with our Faces for Radio plastered all over 1045 The Zone TV. That's Brad Hopkins filling in for Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh. I'm Will Bowling. Our mission to the people is on Fridays, we act like it. A fresh pair of gaiters for your Friday morning.
He said for the workers. So those that don't work, Friday doesn't mean the same thing?
Everybody's working through something. In your occupation and your life and your commute through Nashville traffic. Glad to get you a little bit closer to your destination. 615-737-1045. The number. That's a fast 2 hours we just completed, ladies and gentlemen.
That's Friday. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
There we go. What was that, an F1?
Sounded like the Red Bull car that was on Broadway over the weekend.
No, it's the helicopters that have been flying over my house consistently over the past few nights. Have you not heard them?
No.
Something's going on.
Uh-oh.
There are tons of helicopter action.
Mm-hmm. I don't like it.
I don't either.
Maybe they're looking for a quarterback to play for the Titans next Sunday.
Actually had Lifeline land at St. Matthew football field one time and pick up somebody that was in distress. It was a senior that had been in an incident and needed to be lifelined. But other than that, we don't normally hear many helicopters going overhead in Williamson County where I'm at. But boy, I tell you what, there's been a steady stream, and that consistency has kind of raised my eyebrows. Like, what is going on?
Well, maybe they are looking for signs from a defensive or offensive play caller like Michigan allegedly was.
Oh, Harbaugh hired him.
Jim Harbaugh had to comment on this yesterday, a report that was very interesting and implying that there is an NCAA investigation into allegations about sign stealing. Jim Harbaugh, of course, denying knowledge or involvement in plotting to steal opponents' play calling signals by sending representatives to their games. Says the report that this is an in-person issue, not necessarily just a camera on play callers during a game. This was Jim Harbaugh allegedly sending people to their future opponents' games in order to grab signals like that. A report first obtained by Yahoo Sports yesterday says that second-ranked Michigan allegedly had people attending games of future opponents as well as possible college football playoff opponents to gather information on signs used to call plays on offense and defense.
First of all, Mr. Khaki Pants already missed games to start the season. And you wonder really what is going on there at Michigan. Because remember, we were at a point with Michigan and Harbaugh where we didn't think he was going back because it wasn't going great there. And that at a flip of a switch, it was like things turned around at Michigan. Obviously, there was new staffers that were hired, and they got things together in that capacity. But Jim Harbaugh seems to be up to some stuff there. Looks to be cooking up some stuff there other than things that you actually have to follow the rules.
Well, dag nabbit, Kayla, it looks like you've discovered the key to their success. Sending people in person to the game ahead of time to
Maybe
steal
it helps.
signals. Listen, I know that Jim Harbaugh's quirky. I think he does the best that he can to make sure that his kids have the best experience at Michigan, and that seems to be consistent. Those kids love him up there. The program is where it should be because the Big Ten needs Michigan.
Oh,
They
yeah.
need Ohio State, so they're living up to their end of the bargain. Jim Harbaugh didn't invent this. Jim Harbaugh maybe just got his hands caught in the cookie jar. That's it. Guarantee you there are delegates sent all over the dang place a week ahead of time to discover some sort of competitive advantage.
So what is he just sending staffers out or hiring people to go spy? Because it was in person, right?
That is the allegation. So
And how do they get discovered? Is he going to these games wearing Michigan regalia, like sitting in the stands with a Michigan hat on? Don't mind me, with binoculars, right? Or so, come on, how did somebody snitch or
It's
were they?
interesting.
Yeah.
So the NCAA, which said it would not comment on the investigation, does not have rules specifically against stealing signs, but it does prohibit in-person advanced scouting of opponents and does have bylaws prohibiting that. The NFL, of course, has used helmet communication, the first version limited to sideline communication in 1994 in that context. Guys, to me, if you're not trying to hide your signs and the calls that you are specifically giving to your team, that's a you problem. This is why every team has those big black curtains that they put behind specific play callers in college football. Tennessee has 3 GAs that probably have the best forearm strength of any human being in the state of Tennessee because they're holding up a massive curtain behind all 3 of the play callers in order to hide any camera or any person behind the bench seeing what the play calls are. That's on you to me. This just seems like one of those things like in baseball. If your signs are being stolen because somebody's on second base watching what the catcher's putting down, then get better signs. I don't know. This feels like a very abstract way to blame Michigan for something that it's such a gray area. There's no way you can enforce really any kind of penalty on this unless you had specific proof of a full-time employee or I guess even a part-time employee being at a game before Michigan was playing this.
So is this what you get for having success and being one of the top-ranked teams in the country? Is this is kind of like, anything we find now, we got to put it out there.
There's got to be something to their winning. It can't be just head up, right? It's got to be something that they're doing that separates them. But the great Warren Sapp once told me when we were in New York, he said, B-Hop, if you ain't trying to cheat, you ain't trying to win.
That's what I used to say in high school. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
You ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
And y'all know I like to get messy. The internet has sleuthed out one of the potential coaches who might have complained about this.
Really?
As a relation to the state of Tennessee. This is back when Rutgers was playing Michigan. Greg Schiano at halftime of the game.
Penalties for your team in the first half, some that cost you. How do you clean that up in the second half?
Well, there's some stuff going on out there, so we just got to slow it down a little bit. There's some things going on that aren't right as well, so we'll talk about how to handle it.
Shut up.
Oh.
Rutgers was never
Greg.
going to beat Michigan, even if you had their signs.
Right.
Shut up,
Oh,
Greg.
Schiano.
When I was at Illinois, Bruce Pearl got us into a pickle because of recruiting, right? And then he had the same thing happen to him later on in life when he was here in Tennessee. So
Yeah.
what goes around comes around, and they're all doing it. God bless these people that are employing the hearing impaired people that that know how to read lips and stuff like that. That's why people have to cover their mouths with clipboards, because when they give So everybody does it. They're trying to find some way of understanding who and what you do, the reason why you're successful.
Bud Elliott, I thought, had a good take on this. 247 Sports writer and on the Cover 3 podcast, said the idea that sending someone to steal signs at an opponent's game played in front of 80,000 people, the idea that that's somehow unethical or immoral is thumbs down. It is only, quote, illegal because in the 90s, a bunch of schools didn't want to pay to send scouts on the road and passed a rule. I'm with him, honestly. The game is played in front of 100,000 people sometimes. You really think there's not video out there that if you really wanted to match up signs with play calls? I know that people are doing that. There are GAs whose jobs are to watch broadcast copy and try to match up those signals. Sure. I mean, there are tricks in every level of sports and the stories that we hear that would surprise you on just how deep things go in order to find out if a player is injured or not. If a player, there are so many GAs and staffers and interns like Butch Jones at Alabama whose entire jobs are to look at these things. Sending someone there in person is no different than what's being done on film literally every single week, in my opinion. So
yeah, I would imagine they go more on formation, consistency, and the same things that you do, play in and play out during those situations versus, hey, I got to wait for my scout to get back here to tell me exactly what kind of signs that they're throwing out there and what that actually means. No, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, Mike Golick Jr., a friend of the show, tweeted out on this, said, if you're filming it, that's probably where I draw the line. But there's a big reason you have big, stupid sideline signs or 3 guys signaling, because everyone is trying to do some version of this. 100%. If your signs get stolen, then get better signs. 615-737-1045. We'll get back to your phone calls coming up later on in the show at 9 o'clock. But coming up next, he is voice of the Titans, Mike Keith. Joins us every Friday morning at 8:20 this time of the year. We'll get his thoughts on this Titans team in the bye week and the biggest question marks facing an offense that is without a little bit of an identity right now. We'll get to Mike Keith on the other side. It's RKW 104.5 The Zone.
It's Ramon Foster for Scoreboard Bar and Grill. Scoreboard's all-you-can-eat low-country bowl has been extended through October. That's right, crab, shrimp, booze, music, and football. If it's a Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday night, both Scoreboards will have all the games, food, and music you want. Now you can hit up 2 locations, one across from Old Hickory Lake and one across from the Grand Ole Opry, both running the area's only all-you-can-eat low-country bowl Saturday from noon to 5. So get out and enjoy the best weather and time of the year. Either Scoreboard. You owe it to yourself to go see why Scoreboard Opryland was just voted the #1 sports bar in Nashville. And both Scoreboards will be hosting the best Halloween parties on October 28th. So put that on your calendar. Join the fun and win cashes for the best costumes. And be sure to join 3HL this Friday from 3 to 6 as they broadcast live from the original Scoreboard Opryland location. And listen up, they'll have great giveaways, including a pair of UT versus UConn tickets. And all drinks are 2 for $1 from 3 to 6 while you party and chill with 3HL. And if you want to try your hand at beating Brent and Slay's picks, go between 3 to 6, as I just told you. Fill out your sheet, and maybe you'll win the $250 prize pack. So remember, if it's football time, it's Scoreboard time.
Friday morning rolls on RKW, brewed by 8th and Roast right here on 104.5 The Zone with Brad Hopkins filling in for Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson. I'm Will Bowling. And joining us on the phone lines this morning, he is voice of the Titans, Mike Keith. What's going on, Mike? How are you?
Good morning.
Mike, before we talk about this team and last Sunday and the many questions facing this group in the bye week, wanted to first ask about your thoughts of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. How did it compare to Wembley? What was your favorite part about Sunday's experience in London?
Well, the fans. The fans were absolutely fantastic. And to see not only the Titans fans there, the Ravens fans, but just, fans from all over Europe who came to celebrate the NFL, it was spectacular. The venue is spectacular. I had a chance to talk with Burke Nihill, our team president, in pregame and ask him about how similar this was going to be to the new Titans Stadium. And he feels like it's very similar, in terms of a lot of parts of it. Obviously, our stadium's going to have a full roof. This only had sort of an overhang. But, the pitch of the seats being closer to the field, the different venues that are sort of within the stadium that make it really cool. It was really a functional place for what we do, which was how it was set up. It was functional for the teams in terms of locker rooms and all of the things that you need to do in that way, which is obviously different than soccer. So they've built a place that's really something else. And to know that our place in less than 4 years is going to look a lot like that and have the bells and whistles that venue has, that makes me even more excited about the new Titans Stadium.
Mike, going into a pivotal point of the season at 2-4, just like you were in 2019 when you made the run of the AFC Championship game, there's a lot of football left to be played. But at this point of the season, what has surprised you about this Titans team, either positively or negatively, as we kind of hit this checkpoint and get to a turning point of the season starting next Sunday against Atlanta?
I think the thing that is surprising to me is it's not totally surprising some of the difficulties they've had on offense. I've said it on your show every week. I thought it would take time, and it has played out in that way. And now the quarterback's hurt, and that kind of adds to it. And you're trying to figure out how all the pieces are best used with, you certainly hope that Ryan Tannehill could be back for the Atlanta game. But if he can't, it's going to be one of the new guys, and the coaching staff may already know who that is. They may have already decided, not told anybody, or they may still be deciding. And I don't know if it'll become obvious to us the middle of next week, or, if we'll find out a couple hours before kickoff. But nonetheless, it's another piece that's thrown into this that kind of adds to what's the best way to say it? That sort of adds to the changes and, sort of pulling everything together in the way they've been trying to since the start of the season. I hoped they would have found more rhythm by now, but I'm not surprised that it's been hard because it was such a major change systematically, scheme-wise, and everything that they're doing. And, some things have come through positively. I mean, Tajay Spears is playing well, and we thought he would. They're figuring out how to use he and Derrick Henry together, which is kind of an exciting possibility. It would be very exciting if Treylon Burks could be back and could make it through the last 11 games and could develop some continuity, because we really haven't seen him have that point with DeAndre Hopkins yet. That would be a good thing. Josh Wiley would be great if he can stay on the field with Chigakonkwo, and hopefully that can happen. So we'll see. But I thought before the season, I hoped for 3-3 and 4-2 at this point, because I just felt like it was going to take a while, and it has, and it really surprises me I was actually right for once.
Mike Keith joining us now. Mike, when you talk about maybe one of those younger quarterbacks possibly playing here as they host the Atlanta Falcons next weekend. If you do, in fact, see Will Levis out there, would be the first time, obviously, as an NFL starter. What could we maybe expect from Will, just from what you've seen in terms of his growth? Because that is something Mike Vrabel did say on Monday. I have continued to see the growth from Will.
Yeah, and I think that's on and off the field too. To realize sort of how you have to act as an NFL quarterback. Not that he didn't know how to act, but it's different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you're walking into a new job, and anybody who has ever walked into any new job, you have to adapt. And that's what Will has done, and I'm very impressed with Will. I really like him. He's a good guy, first and foremost, and that's no guarantee of NFL success by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the guys respond well to him because I think they sort of get him and understand that he's a good guy. His athleticism is really something else. I mean, he's got an arm. He can really move. You can do a lot with him in a lot of different ways. And I think, when we see Will Levis at that point, whenever that is, they will attempt to use that athleticism to be able to help him make some good decisions and to win some matchups fast. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the biggest guy, but in terms of his overall size and speed and just how athletically he does things, you see there's some things that you could use right away. You could certainly get him on the move and make some things happen. And then the arm is just something else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just absolutely something else. The big thing about Will that was his advantage coming in is at Penn State and at Kentucky, he had been asked to play a more traditional quarterback role. And the majority of quarterbacks who come in the league today have not been. And that's very hard for them to learn how to call a play and to get under center and to do all the sort of administrative things. He knows how to do that. And that's because of the background at the two programs where he spent time in college.
Mike, defensively for this team and kind of regrouping during the bye week, you saw some great red zone defense from them, holding the Ravens to just 1 of 6 in the red zone on Sunday. But what are some of the things you're looking for in terms of got to take it up a notch here after the bye week?
Well, their overall numbers are fine. I mean, they're giving up 339 yards a game and 19.5 points per game. If you'd told me that before the season, I'd have thought probably 4-2, 3-3, 4-2. That's the defense has been fine. I mean, they can play better, but it's about big plays. And I think if the offense has the ability to stay on the field more and can sort of take some of the pressure off of them, I think we'll see more big plays out of the defense because I think they'll be able to tee off a little more, to take a few chances.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things strategically that you don't do as a defense when you're in a game and your offense is having a hard time scoring because you think to yourself, okay, we'll be willing to give up a field goal here. We can't give up a touchdown. We just cannot give up a touchdown because those extra 4 points put us in a difficult position. You have to play defense more defensively. The thing I'm looking for out of the defense over the last 11 games, and this is no great insight, they got to make big plays.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to score. They've got to knock the quarterback loose. I mean, only 3 players on this team have caused a turnover so far. Sean Murphy-Bunting, Amani Hooker, and Travis Gibson. Those are the 3 players who've caused a turnover. To me, the law of averages says that's got to change. But that's what I'm looking for out of the defense. If they keep doing what they're doing and add big plays, the Titans will be fine with the defense.
Mike, let me take you back over to London. Baltimore said the key to slowing down the Titans is not letting Derrick Henry get 3 steps. Obviously, being able to shift gears is a huge thing. I'm looking at both explosive plays that I saw from Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears. I just hope that we're not creating an Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard situation. I remember TSU's head coach finishing his career in Dallas, lending way to Chris Brown. Is that a scenario that it looks to repeat itself?
I don't think so, Brad, and I get that. I understand that, that you end up feeling like you have to choose one over the other. I certainly think there's a role for both. But I think in order to expand the whole thing and to use both properly, you've got to be just more consistent. I think the number one key for the Titans on offense the rest of the year is they've got to improve third down. I mean, I think it's a huge factor is they've got to play great third down offense, because if they are, then everything expands. They'll be better in the red zone. They'll develop more continuity, and then you can really fully utilize, especially Derek. I mean, the not staying on the field is killing Derek's ability to be the weapon he is more than anybody else, due to the fact that when you're in these situations like they have been, where you're having to throw the ball or do more things where you're having to spread the opposition out, that's going to be more Tajay than it is Derek. And really, you can't even do as much with Tajay except pass protect. That's where the Titans have got to find a way to stay out there and to be more consistent. In watching them back and watching the game back, I was looking for more situations where I thought, okay, well, maybe you should have used Derek here. And honestly, Brad, I couldn't find him, because they were in tough down and distance. They were in tough places in terms of what the score was, trying to come back in certain instances. They've got to continue to find ways to use him. Guess what? In the Chargers game, they did. He had 25 carries. In the Cincinnati game, they did. He got 22 carries. They had plays. They stayed on the field. Man, that's what's got to happen. So the reason for sort of the back shuffle at this point is that if you're using guys as they are to be used, you've got to have their situation come up where you can call their number. And, 46 plays is all they had the other day. That's it. And they were behind 15 points at halftime, to one of the better defenses in the NFL. And then their quarterback got hurt. That's just not – if you put Malik Willis in the game and you start handing to Derrick Henry, you don't think Mike McDonald and the Baltimore defense are going to know exactly what's coming every single play? Sure they are. And that's a long answer to your question, but I wanted to look at it a little further myself to see if I was missing something, and I really this team has got to get into the 40 to 45% range converting third downs to give themselves a chance to be more functional.
Ryan obviously was diagnosed with a high ankle sprain, and he's wearing a cast, but no definitive time for recovery, Mike. How big is Ryan not needing surgery on that ankle?
No, it's huge. Because you're gonna have the chance to get him back at some point, and the fact that it came right before the bye too, Brad. To give him the extra week for them to just say, okay, we can do this right now without having to rush him in any way, shape, or form. Last year, even going into the Houston game at Houston, which was the week after he got hurt, he was still out at practice, and you're still wondering what was going to happen. And, they had him sitting on bleachers out there watching practice. We really didn't know until like the very, very end of the week he wasn't going to go. Well, this week he doesn't have to do any of that. He's off his feet. He's able to take that time. And so maybe, that will give him the opportunity to get better. What's most challenging for the next couple of weeks, though, is, okay, he's off this week, and the Titans are off this week, but then we've got Atlanta on the 29th, and then we turn around and fly to Pittsburgh on Wednesday the 1st and play on Thursday night the 2nd. So do you is it if he's going to miss one game, is it automatic that he's going to miss two games because a Thursday follows? That's what you're wondering about all of this. The last time he had this injury, he missed two games. So, we'll see if that ends up being the case, if it is as similar as it was to the first injury last year. But, your best chance to win is with Ryan Tannehill. He's your quarterback. Mike Vrabel said it this week.
Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, with us. Mike, when you look at this team compared to that 2019 team that also started 2-4, obviously with the turnover on this roster, there are not a ton of players left from that team who are still starters and contributors to this group. When you compare those two groups, though, Is this a totally different challenge for this team, what they have ahead of them, the personnel they have on this team? Or is there anything you can take away from that run they went on in 2019 and say, maybe this is something you can recreate a little bit down the stretch this season?
Maybe. To me, the biggest thing about that team is when I watched that club, I just thought, man, that team is not 2-4. They're better players on this roster. And I think that about this team, too. I think there are better players. There are guys who have not had a chance to make big plays on this team who are still really good players. And you've got DeAndre Hopkins. And, you know, we had some nice receivers in 2019, and I loved them. But, I mean, gosh, DeAndre Hopkins, this is a guy who can really still play. You saw in the 63-yard run, Derek still got it. For anybody who wondered, you know, even on the 15-yard run for the touchdown, I mean, he could still go. And this kid Spears is special. You know, there's some guys on defense that can make things happen. So while some of the problems are different and some of the challenges are different, I think the overall part of it that jumps out to me is this is not a bad football team. This is just a football team that is really not playing well. And if they can sort of meet their potential, just do what these guys are capable of doing, I think they've got a chance to get back into it because the schedule does come back to them with the five games, you know, in the division. And, you know, at a certain point, of course, I mean, you won't have to tell this to anybody in Jacksonville because they thought they were out of the division race in December. And then, unfortunately for us, we came back to the pack, and in particular came back to them. So even after their nice win last night, they know nothing is guaranteed. And we know that as well. We've just got to get it in gear and get some guys stepping forward and making some big things happen.
Voice of the Titans, Mike Keith, our guest Fridays here on RKW. Mike, enjoy the bye week, and thank you as always for the time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks,
Good to hear
Mike.
you, Brad.
Great to be on with you, buddy.
See you.
Good stuff. All right, there's Mike Keith with us, and I think that's interesting what he has to say there at the end about similarities between this team and 2019, because I think everyone wants to bring to the table the quarterback change that happened then and say, oh, well, you've got the opportunity to make a quarterback change now again. It feels like there are better similarities you can point to when it comes to receivers getting healthy and a pass rush kind of clicking into gear a little bit and getting healthy itself as well, with Harold Landry getting back to full health. It just feels like there are some things you can take away from 2019. Now, it remains to be seen, obviously, whether or not the Titans can capitalize on them. But for a team that is so different personnel-wise, there are similar challenges facing this group as there were in Week 7 4 years ago. And it is still crazy to me that that was 4 years ago, because that feels like yesterday. I know.
It would seem obvious what this team's identity should be, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's not.
It's not, though.
Yep. Coming up, Sammy Kincaid joins us. She'll be on the sidelines for Brentwood Academy and Lipscomb Academy tonight, a heavyweight matchup in D2 AAA high school football. We'll get the latest on the high school football season that, guys, has 2 weeks left in the regular season when we come back on 104.5 The Zone. Hey, it's Will Bowling here from my friends at Brentwood Hearing Center, who understands choosing a hearing care provider is a big decision. And Brentwood Hearing Center's number one priority is delivering exceptional patient care. Their staff combines many years of expertise in hearing health care, and they're well-trained on a variety of services ranging from evaluations to treatment. And at Brentwood Hearing Center, not only do they have the best technology on the market to help you hear better, they're going to keep you hearing better as well. Remember this phone number, 615-377-0420. If you've got that one family member that keeps on telling you, look, you got to get your hearing checked. I am so tired of you asking me to repeat myself. Maybe there is something that you can do. And Brentwood Hearing Center, they've got the best technology on the market to help you, and they're ready to create a relationship with you to keep you hearing your best as well. Over 30 years, one home, proudly serving Brentwood from the same location right off the Brentwood Old Hickory exit on I-65. They've been there for more than 30 years. Give them a call, 615-377-0420, online at BrentwoodHearingCenter.com. That's Brentwood Hearing Center. Better hearing, better life. RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast right here on 104.5 The Zone. Coming up in 15 minutes, our final thoughts on Tennessee and Alabama this weekend before Andy Staples of On3 stops by at 9:20. But right now, it is week 10 of the high school football season. Unbelievable how quickly it has flown by. And joining us, as she does on Fridays at 8:45, she is Sammy Kincaid, who will be on the sidelines on MyTV30 as Kevin Mawai's Lipscomb Academy takes on George McIntyre and Brentwood Academy tonight. What's going on, Sammy? How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's going to be, I think, I kept saying it all morning long. Ignore the records of both of these teams. I think it's still going to be a great matchup tonight.
So this is an interesting one because you have a Lipscomb team that has played a national schedule and has lost some really close games to some outstanding teams. And then you have a Brentwood Academy team who has clinched their first losing season since the 70s. They are 1-7 this season, Brentwood Academy. Yet in that, you have a 1-point loss to CPA, a 3-point loss to a very good Brentwood High team, be a second ever loss to a Williamson County school in school history, and they've been playing football for 50 years down there. You got a 5-point loss to Knoxville Catholic and a 7-point loss to Baylor, who might be the best team in the state of Tennessee, regardless of class. What's the vibe you get from this BA team, who's got maybe the best quarterback in the country for the junior class as well?
Yeah, well, while talking to Coach Gill, the big thing is he said their coaching staff has to figure out whenever you have that many playmakers, how do you figure out who can play with who? There's a lot of mixing and matching, and that's been the really hard part is trying to mix everyone together and get the right match offensively for them to be able to get it going. And you mentioned that loss to CPA. That was one of the very first games we had this season on MyTV30, and we said, oh, between these 3 games, those were 3 great matchups, but we're like, there's no way we get these close of games all season long. Sure enough, we did, but we had this one circled on the schedule thinking that's going to be the best game. That's, I think, the game that everyone had circled going into this season is that's going to be the top matchup in the state. Nobody really expected both teams to be where they are.
Yeah, certainly one that has been a bit surprising from Brentwood Academy's perspective. What about Lipscomb, though? A team that has a quarterback come in, transfer for the beginning of the season, and then transfer out after a few weeks. They've had some close losses. They had a great win over Innsworth that we called on the Zone, but I just love talking football with Kevin Mawai, and you really feel like with the amount of turnover they've had to have on that roster over the past couple of seasons, it does feel like a totally new Lipscomb team, although you still have the Caleb Beasleys and the Edwin Spillmans, who are just amazing leaders on that defense specifically.
And those are 2 names that immediately when I was talking to Brentwood Academy, Coach Gill pointed those 2 out because they are amazing leaders, what they're doing on the defense, and they will play some on the offense as well. That's 2 names that you have to have circled, that you have to watch out for on Lipscomb's roster. But as you mentioned, they've had a lot of turnover. If you look at the roster, 8 guys from last year are playing in D1 at D1 schools. 6 of those are SEC schools. The amount of talent they have each year that they always end up turning over, it's incredible how they're able to bounce back. And what Kevin Mawai is doing at Lipscomb, whenever I talk to him, he seemed more frustrated or trying to just figure out how to get things going defensively. He said it's almost as if they're shooting themselves in the foot defensively. They end up picking up some personal fouls. He mentioned the NBA game specifically, that they had 3 and outs almost the entire game, except for the only drives that they didn't. NBA ended up scoring twice on those, and that ended up being the difference maker. And then last week, they had 13 drives, defensive drives, where 11 of those were third and out, and the other 2, they ended up staying alive because of personal fouls. He said that's just what's getting them in a lot of trouble right now.
When you look at these 2 teams and similar situations for both, lots of talent, just haven't been able to really live up to the bill, right, this season for different reasons. So what is the key tonight for one of these teams to kind of get back in that win column?
Well, it's kind of funny, but both of them want to be able to control the clock. That's
right?
Both of their big keys for tonight is control the clock. And you have to know where the playmakers are at all times, because even though they haven't been able to get it together, if you put those playmakers in space, something's going to happen. And so you have to be very conscious of where you're lining up, the gaps, and make sure that you're playing to the game plan. That is the biggest key that both head coaches honestly hit on.
Week 10 already. It is unbelievable that we're already at this point, Sammy. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but what has been the most impressive environment you have been on the sideline for this season? You've seen a lot of blue blood Middle Tennessee high school football programs this year, what have been a couple of your favorite places to go this year?
It's actually one of the teams that's playing tonight. And I will say, though, we had the warmest welcome at Lipscomb this morning.
Nice.
They had on the video board, which they only were notified yesterday afternoon-ish that we would be there.
Nice.
And they actually had a full graphic that said, "Welcome to Lipscomb Academy, Fox 17." So that was very nice of them that they pulled that together. But I must say, at Brentwood Academy, at the beginning of the season, that was insane. I texted a couple people, and I remember playing at Brentwood Academy, but I guess it's different going back as an adult versus a student. And I was like, this looks like I feel like I'm on Ole Miss's campus or something right now. The tailgating,
Right.
it was something different.
Quick question for you. Wilson County versus Williamson County. Lucas Panzica and I had the pleasure of doing Friday night rivalries out in Wilson County. Undefeated Mount Juliet, yeah. Took on Lebanon, double overtime. Great game. They get to travel down to Franklin. I wonder what that matchup's going to look like.
Yeah, no, I was actually paying attention to that game because I call into the post game and Hunk said, "Hey, I hate to break it to you, but you're going to have some time before you can call into the post game show because of that game going into overtime." And what a weird way for that game to end. But I think that what they're doing at Mount Juliet and Lebanon, I mean, both of those teams are absolute powerhouses. So, I mean, going down to Franklin, I am a Wilson County. I was going to say Wilco girl, but I got to be careful how I say that because it's both Wilco.
Right.
Yeah.
But I am a Wilson County girl. I grew up in Mount Juliet, so I'm going to take Wilson County on this one.
And you're not a Titans girl.
That's yeah, we're still fighting on that.
Did you just call her out?
Called me out.
Sammy Kincaid with us. You can see her on the sideline tonight. My TV 30 as Brentwood Academy takes on Lipscomb. I'm very biased, Sammy, but I am partial to the Brentwood Academy public address announcer, so I'm very glad to hear that they welcomed you well. It's my dad. My dad is the Brentwood Academy public address announcer. Best in the business, Ronnie Bowling. Sammy, thank you.
Thanks, Sammy.
you.
All right, hour 4 when we come back. 16 minutes left in the week. Little Tennessee, Alabama talk coming up next.
What's going on? It's 9 o'clock on a Friday in the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Last night on Thursday Night Football, Jags stopped the Saints on 4th down from 6 yards out to win at 31-24. Trevor Lawrence knee looked fine to me as he rushed for 59 yards, leading the Jags in rushing. Jags moved to 5-2 and remain in first place in the AFC South. Big game this weekend with no Titans football. Number 17, Tennessee, taking on number 11, Alabama. If you're out and about on Saturday, you can check the game out right here on 104.5 The Zone. Pre-game coverage starts at 12:30 and will take you all the way up to kickoff at 2:30. And in Carolina, Panthers wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr. has received permission to seek a trade. Carolina discussed the matter with his agent as the player seeks a more prominent role. He's welcome back if no trade is found. The former second-round pick has 104 catches for 742 yards and 1 touchdown since 2021. Another name to watch as the trade deadline rapidly approaches. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
"60 minutes left on your Friday morning edition of RKW, brewed by 8th and Roast. Go by and see him today. Get you a Friday cup of joe. You earned it. You deserve it. And then if you'd like to have a Saturday morning cup of 8th and Roast, we'll go by your favorite Kroger or Whole Foods. We highly recommend any of the blends that they've got. Look for that light blue bag, the light blue logo with the 8, the ampersand, the R. It's the best you're going to get in the city of Nashville. We've been sipping on the Black Condor blend this morning, which you can go pick up at any of their locations. Great, great stuff. Caffeinated and opinionated, as always, here on a Friday. Where with Brad Hopkins and Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, our producer, I'm Will Bowling. It is Friday, and we are successfully acting like it.
Dedicated for all the workers.
All the workers.
They work 9 to 5.
And a 9 to 5 that might just be starting right now. Maybe if you're running a little late to work this morning, just stream us on 104.5 The Zone TV. You got 60 more minutes of RKW you need in your life. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, where you can watch the show, join the conversation in the F&M Bank chat. Been a quick 3 hours, guys.
It has. It really has. And we've introduced Brad Hopkins to 8th and Roast, which I feel like you appreciated that good coffee this morning.
Accidentally got the wrong cup of coffee, and I noticed the difference.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Big difference, right?
We'll make some mean pot of coffee,
Yeah.
and I had the 8th and Roast blend this morning. It was very delicious. Went back in the break room, grabbed a cup of coffee. It wasn't 8th and Roast. I said, what in the...
I said, that's not the right one, Brad.
There might be another station in this building who makes a different kind of cup of coffee than we do. And let's just say that the 8th and Roast that we have in our lives is very, very pivotal to us having the energy that we have.
Yes.
Every morning.
Do you guys have a favorite yet? The Concepcion Buena Vista?
I like that one.
I
Yeah.
do too.
I like this one.
The Black Condor.
Black Condor.
I do.
Yeah.
Now, I
Yeah.
will say that there is one blend that actually challenges 8th and Roast.
Okay.
And she's listening right now. My wife makes a
Look
mean
at that.
espresso.
Okay, nice.
And she makes sure I have one every single morning. So, baby, get one of those ready for me. I'll be home in a little bit.
You're going to have round 2 of coffee today.
Well, I went the other day to 8th and Roast, and you're probably going to see me there today if you're studying or working anywhere at the 8th Avenue location. Got a homemade s'mores Pop-Tart. Literally homemade Pop-Tart that was so good. And then they've got a really good pumpkin latte there right now that I have not yet tried. And that may be in my future today. So facts about me, guys. When I called games in high school at my alma mater, I would always between cross-country practice and the game that I was calling, I would always get a pumpkin coffee because pumpkin and fall and football were all synonymous to me. And yes, I'm a basic white female and I don't care. But I
was wondering
love
where you were going with that.
I love anything pumpkin. And
Pumpkin he
on the
loves.
first high school football game that I broadcast every year, that's always the first Friday of pumpkin drinks. And so I always get one. And so there's just a link in my brain of football and pumpkin.
Would you have a game tonight?
Yeah, CPA,
that's
FRA.
okay, yeah. So you'll be getting that at 8th and Roast.
Probably, yes.
And they have a new menu, by the way.
They
is
do.
What you mentioned for food.
They do.
Because all their pastries, all their like sandwiches, so good.
The croissant's amazing.
Go back a second. You said homemade Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We've had a homemade pumpkin Pop-Tart before in here. We've had like apricot.
Yep.
Really good.
And now s'mores. That's
Made with
my
real
favorite.
apes, as Michael Scott would say.
Shut up.
You knew I was going to say
Oh my
it.
God.
We made eye contact
Is the
and you
hair
knew
included?
I was going there. Oh, goodness. Tennessee, Alabama tomorrow on the Zone. How do we feel about this one? Because the closer we get, I don't know if it's the diploma of the institution I attended or what, but the more I read and look into these two teams, the more I'm surprised by how similar they really are. Guys, I think this game comes down to Jalen Milroe's ability to throw the ball accurately down the field and Joe Milton's inability to do that. Like Brent Hubbs said with us earlier this morning, nothing would surprise me in this game other than Tennessee blowing out Alabama. A Tennessee win wouldn't surprise me. An Alabama win wouldn't surprise me. An Alabama blowout win really wouldn't surprise me. I think everything's on the table tomorrow in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I'm kind of like flip the coin at this point. I really am. And I say that because I see where Tennessee is going. And I actually like Tennessee a little better, a little more in this game, I should say. Just because I've seen a little more progress. And I'm not saying that Alabama isn't making progress. They are. Because I look at Alabama then and I say, I look at Nick Saban. He continues to be one of the greatest coaches of all time for a reason, because he always finds a way to get his teams ready, right? Mm-hmm. And they have one loss on the season, and he's found ways to win ever since. But I do think it comes down to like one play. I really do. It could be a one play type of game, right? Where you have something like a Milroe interception or something, and that can be the deciding factor in this one.
I think one of the biggest differences is that Alabama has been in the top 5 every time these teams have played, except for twice, going back to, I think, 2010 and 2015, where they weren't ranked in the top 5. They were like probably in the top 10.
Sure.
Okay. But last year's win may have opened the eyes to the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban himself, as to the talent that does exist in Rocky Top. But ultimately, I think, that this is a team that doesn't know the history, doesn't care about the history. So the fact that these teams are more evenly matched, the fact that both teams come into this contest ranked, that means Tennessee feels good about itself. And we know that Alabama is still trying to fight back to get to its identity as once captured. But it seems like the competition around them have caught up.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I think I'll take Alabama by a touchdown in this one. Ultimately, I need to see Tennessee handle a hostile environment like this the way they're supposed to before I can pick them to go down there and win, right? We talked about it in Gainesville. And the more we've seen of those teams, Tennessee had no business losing to Florida. None whatsoever. And they totally lost their heads on offense. They couldn't stop the run, which is the strength of this defense. And as Austin Price said with us Tuesday, the game plan just wasn't good for Tennessee defensively in Gainesville. It needs to be a lot better. I think the concern for me, and it's exactly what Brent Hubbs said, is Tennessee's going to be in the backfield, but Alabama has the ability in 2nd and 3rd and long to still move the chains down the field to Jermaine Burton. And they have the ability, Jalen Milroe does, of making guys miss at open space, scrambling off schedule, and just beating Tennessee one-on-one in that environment. That's the concern for me going into this one, even more so than Joe Milton, because Joe Milton is what he is at this point. Tennessee's going to have to run the ball to be good.
Yeah, I think this game actually will be less about Jalen Milroe and Joe Milton and be more about Dallas Turner and James Pierce.
Sure.
Both of these defenses coming in, having had some success, right? And both offenses need to be able to handle the success of either defense to be able to have a win tomorrow.
I just hope for a good game. I really want to see a good game. I want to watch from start to finish and be on the edge of my seat. I know Vols fans would not like that, but as a neutral person in this party, I would like to see a very good
I
game.
think Vols fans would like that. Tennessee fans want a good game.
No, I mean, like, they don't want them necessarily be on the edge of their feet or edge of their seats.
Oh, well.
Hey, Will, what does the all-white unis do for you?
I like them. I prefer the orange pants, to be honest with you. I really do. But I do like the all-white. Honestly, though, there is a big push on social media, and I think it's a good one. Take away the orange collar on the white jerseys and bring back the big orange numbers outlined in black on the road jerseys. I'm a fan of that. That's what their practice jerseys are. It's what they wore forever back when Philip Fulmer didn't know how to lose to Alabama. So I don't know. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it at all. But it is going to be a really good one. Andy Staples is going to join us coming up here in just a few minutes. I'm interested, guys, to ask Andy as well who the best team in college football is going into this weekend.
Because we got Joshua's answer yesterday.
It feels like there are 3 legitimate answers. Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State.
Pretty much.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, right now.
I would agree with that.
Mhm.
Two Big Ten teams.
That's right. I mean, Michigan's had all that sign stealing. It's really awesome.
Stop.
I'm just kidding. No, it does feel like that. And honestly, too, with the Heisman Trophy, it does feel like there's one runaway leader for the Heisman right now, and it's Michael Penix. Interested to ask Andy who is the number one challenger to Penix, or if Penix isn't even number one in his eyes. If Jaden Daniels has done enough in an LSU team that has not met expectations this season to be up in that conversation as well. Andy Staples of On 3 joins us coming up next as we talk some college football right here on RKW.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson for the Ingram Agency. They are a local agency that was founded from the ground up back in 2010. Chris Ingram, along with his team of fully licensed professionals, have created a strong agency that focuses on serving the entire state of Tennessee. So let's say you need insurance right now and you don't want to be just another name on a roster. This is the company to work with. They specialize in such a wide array of products. They have everything from auto, home, life, commercial, and even aviation. And it's not your average insurance company, like I was mentioning. The Ingram Agency, founded on passion for education and support of their clients. And their goal has always been to guide those clients comprehensively. So if you want a family-owned insurance company who actually cares about you, the customer, call the Ingram Agency 615-206-8276. Or to find out more, you can log online to theingramagency.com. Make sure to rest easy with the Ingram Agency.
Talking college football on Friday mornings, RKW, brewed by 8th and Roast right here on 104.5 The Zone. We've got former Titan Brad Hopkins filling in for the big Ragu Ramon Foster this morning. Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, our producer. I'm Will Bowling, and joining us, he is our good friend Andy Staples of On 3. What's up, Andy? How are you?
Good. How y'all doing?
Good.
We're good. I have gone ahead and admitted my battered Vol syndrome is alive and well going into tomorrow. And the closer we get, Andy, this is one of those games between Tennessee and Alabama where I'm starting to have more hope, which Ramon tries to tell me to have, but I tell him is never a good thing. Is Tennessee's defense good enough to win them a game in Tuscaloosa tomorrow?
I think they're going to have to take the ball. I think they're going to have to force some turnovers. But, yes, that's possible. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a score similar to what the Alabama-Arkansas game was last week, either direction, because I feel like Tennessee's D-line is going to be able to hit Milroe, and that's going to cause some problems. But I don't have a lot of faith in Joe Milton to just get the ball down the field. They're going to have to be able to run the ball on Alabama. That's not as easy as it has been with some other opponents.
Andy, with this Alabama offensive line, how surprised are you just with some of the struggles they've had? And I don't think anyone expected James Pierce to be one of the best edge rushers of the SEC going into this matchup either. But this is certainly not typical of this game to have Tennessee with such an advantage defensively on the line of scrimmage against an Alabama O-line.
Their line hasn't been dominant in a while. They've had some issues kind of here or there, a position that's not necessarily completely locked down, and this year it's left tackle. And Nick Saban got the question this week, why didn't you just move J.C. Latham, who's their very good right tackle, to left tackle? And he's like, then what do we do at right tackle? And that's the problem, is going to be very good left tackle. He has all the physical tools. He has everything he needs. But he's a true freshman from Iowa playing against the monsters of the SEC, and he had to play against those dudes from Texas. Like, he's not there yet, probably physically, maturity-wise, but he will be there. And I think what they're hoping is he's such a physical freak that perhaps just playing will get him seasoned enough that by the end of the season, they're where they need to be.
Andy Staples joining us now on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. And Andy, when it comes to the SEC this year, I think it's kind of lazy to say maybe the SEC's down. I think more so maybe they're missing the quarterback play that you're seeing in a conference, let's say like the Pac-12. How would you assess that in terms of where the SEC is at right now?
Well, it's not lazy to say they're down. They're down. They are missing the quarterback play. And guess what? When you have good quarterbacks, you're better.
Yeah.
So that makes them down. But that's okay. I mean, that happens. And it's not like an SEC team can't still win the national title. Like, Georgia probably is still the most talented team in the country, even with Brock Bowers' sideline. So I don't think it necessarily changes much about how the season goes. It just sort of takes out – I feel like in a lot of years at this point in the season, it feels like there's maybe 4 teams in the SEC that could conceivably make the playoff. It feels like there's 2 now, and if Alabama loses this weekend, it goes down to 1. And I think that's the difference. Like, if you go to the Pac-12, Oregon lost to Washington, but I could see those 2 playing again with a playoff berth on the line, and I could see Oregon winning it. We'll see about anybody else in the Pac-12, though, because I don't think USC is necessarily a playoff contender. Utah, I don't think they're getting Cam Rising back. So do they have another one? You know, the Big 12, they have the 2, and they're probably going to play again, and the winner's probably going to go. It's the ACC actually has a couple. I mean, that's the thing. They've got Florida State and North Carolina, so it's spread out a little more than usual. You know, it's usually like the ACC has 1 or they have none, or the Big 12 has 1 or none, and the Pac-12 has 1 or none. The SEC usually has like 4. Right now, they have 2.
So you were talking about the ACC and North Carolina clearly playing some good football, Florida State. What about Clemson, Andy? What is going on at Clemson? Is Dabo just in denial in terms of having to really accept that NIL and transfer portal is here to stay? And if he doesn't adapt, what's going to happen there?
if he doesn't adapt, they'll continue to struggle, and eventually he'll either retire or they'll run him out. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to let himself get run out. Dabo's a smart guy. He believes what he believes. And I think what you're going to see is he will either retire young Bob Stoops style or he will adapt. And if he adapts and starts using the transfer portal, they're right back in it. That's like they're doing NIL. That's not the problem. The issue is they won't take transfers and they just won't participate in that. And so you add a couple key pieces to what they already have, it's a very different situation for them. So that's what they got to do. But that game this weekend, I mean, think about this. I don't think Clemson or Miami thought that the loser of this game will have 3 conference losses in mid-October.
Andy, speaking of transfer portal and all things of that nature, I can't remember the last time Alabama was ranked outside of the top 10, but they were at some point this year. Has the competition just simply caught up to them? You're looking at Georgia, obviously Florida State's better this year with Mike Norvell putting together a team. What are your thoughts about the tough road that Alabama has seemingly had in 2023 so far?
Yeah, B-Hop, I think it started really when Kirby Smart left Alabama and went to Georgia because he started getting, 2-3 players a year that Alabama wanted. And you take that off the roster, all of a sudden the depth drops. Now the transfer portal comes, and Alabama has these players who are very good but don't want to wait. Like they're going to go play somewhere where they can be a starter right now. They don't necessarily want to wait 3 years at Alabama, blow up in their 4th year, and then go to the NFL. They want to wait 2 years at Alabama, blow up in their 3rd year somewhere else, and go to the NFL. And that's the thing. You don't want one team to be able to stockpile talent the way they did. And so now it's spreading out a little more, and you're seeing things like they can't find someone who is a really good left tackle right now. And that's going to happen to every team in this era. Now, Georgia seems to be the most immune to it right now. They seem to have the most talent stacked up, but I don't think that's a permanent thing. Michigan has a bunch right now. I don't think that's necessarily a permanent thing. I think there will be ebbs and flows where one program has a pretty good deep roster, but then the next year or two, it's going to be somebody else.
Deion Sanders seemed like he lost a little bit of steam after blowing a 29-point lead. But listen, his impression is still undeniable. Even John Morant seems to respond to him. So what is it about prime time that makes him good for college football, do you think?
He brings so many people into the tent. I mean, people who had never watched college football are watching it because of Deion. And he's fascinating. Everything he does makes news. Everything he does is interesting to people. And there aren't many people like that in the world. And so I've enjoyed watching him do this. I think the loss to Stanford's a crusher because I think they were going to make a bowl game. They were going to find a way to win one more game if they won that game and make a bowl game. And that program needs those practices, the extra 15 practices. And it's going to be hard now because, we were looking at maybe Arizona is one of those ones. Arizona's been playing great. They finally broke through against Washington State last week, but they were triple overtime against USC, within 7 of Washington. Like, Jed Fish is doing a great job there. So can Colorado win that? I don't know. But I'd love to see them make a bowl game just because I think it would help them so much in terms of getting better for next year because they're not going to be doing this massive transfer portal roster flip next year because those guys who transferred in as undergrads, they can't leave without sitting out. So they're going to have to work with what they got and try to get some good freshmen, which I think a lot of recruits, like I'm really interested in recruit flipping season here between now and December because I think a lot of recruits who weren't maybe considering Colorado before are looking at what Deion's doing now and going, I would like to be part of that.
Andy Staples on 3, our guest this morning on Ramon, Kalen, Will. Andy, Penn State, Ohio State is very tempting from the betting perspective that Penn State has covered 7 games in a row, plus 4.5 against that Ohio State team that obviously has the big win over Notre Dame, but still 2 teams that certainly will prove a lot by the way they play one another in just over 24 hours. What do you see in this game, and who is the X factor for you, and who ultimately wins this one?
Whew, this is going to be a fun one. I think it's going to be a pretty defense-heavy game. The Notre Dame-Ohio State game ended at 17-14. I don't know if it's going to be quite that low of a score, but it could be a pretty low score because Penn State's defense is awesome. And Ohio State's defense is considerably better than they have been the last 2 years. So I think it's really going to come down to the two quarterbacks and how they fare under pressure. Because like I was at Ohio State Notre Dame, and Kyle McCord, when he got pressured, looked like a pretty normal quarterback. When he had time, the dude was surgical. It was crazy that last drive, what he did on some of those 3rd and 4th and long plays where he had some time to throw. Penn State's got to heat him up every chance they get and try to make him make a mistake. On the other side, Drew Aller is physically the best quarterback Penn State has had in years. The question is, how does he operate when he's dealing with a bunch of aliens on the other side of the field? Because they've been very conservative offensively, and you should be with that defense. But they're going to have to take some risks. They're going to have to take some shots downfield if they want to win this game. And the other piece of that is, can Penn State's receivers get open downfield? Because I think part of the reason they haven't taken a lot of downfield shots is guys just aren't separating. And they thought they were going to have a little more dynamic group than they have. So I don't think Penn State can win this game just grinding it out on the ground and hoping their defense, like, they can't win it playing like Iowa. They are going to have to throw the ball. Now, Iowa's an interesting case because Penn State beat Iowa 31-0. That Iowa defense is really good. The Iowa offense stinks, obviously. But Drew Aller threw 4 touchdown passes in pouring rain against the Iowa defense. Something tells me he could be pretty good. If you can do that, you could probably throw touchdowns against anybody.
Andy, I'm hearing right now that I should not have bet the over before I talk to you in this Penn State-Ohio State game. The way you're talking about defensive struggle in this one.
Yeah, I would think unless there's a bunch of turnovers that create short fields and easy touchdowns,
Sure.
I don't know that it's going to be a high-scoring game. Now, bet the LSU overs.
Okay, well, I've been doing a lot of that. That's for sure.
Hey, Iowa under, LSU over. The Iowa-Minnesota under, by the way, this week is, the total is 32.5.
No, Andy, it's moved to 30.5. I literally just bet it in the break. I literally, in this break, just like not even 10 minutes ago, I was telling Brad and Kayla, I was like, I'm going to bet this under like a sicko right now.
When it opened, that was my bet. Will it drop below 30?
There it goes. Right?
We still got 24 hours, guys.
Still got time. Andy, who is right now for you the best quarterback in the country? I mean, you could go several different spots with this. And I know we get a ton of calls in here just saying, hey, how about Jaden Daniels? Well, it doesn't help that you're on a team that has just been inconsistent.
Well, but that's not Jaden Daniels' fault.
No, it's not. But you're not going to get, I feel like, that Heisman hype, right?
He might, because he's going to have to put – it's actually kind of like Caleb Williams last year.
Mm-hmm.
The defense is so bad that Jaden Daniels is going to have to put up absurd numbers.
That's a good point.
To keep them winning. So, like, if they could beat Alabama, the only way they're beating Alabama is in, like, a 47-45 game. So that actually works in his favor. They do need to keep winning, but they could win enough that he's going to be considered for the Heisman. If you're asking me who would I draft if I was starting a college football team, I'm still taking Caleb Williams first. Okay. I know he had a bad game, but he's still better than everybody else. Drake May's really good too, but Jaden has been incredible this season, and he is. If you watch him from early Arizona State, and he's actually really good his freshman year at Arizona State when he had some talent around him, and then struggled when the Eno Benjamins and the Brandon Ayuk's left, but he's so different than he was early in last season at LSU. Early last season at LSU didn't seem like a very confident passer. Now he is just everything's clicking. Those two receivers, Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors are just fantastic. So he's been fun to watch, and he seems to get better every week. I'll give you another good quarterback, not necessarily the best in the country competition, but somebody who's been really good this year is Brady Cook at Missouri.
Yeah.
Hey, Andy, has the additions of Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado helped the Big 12 maybe survive against the Big 10 and, of course, the SEC?
No.
Okay.
The Big 10 and the SEC are so much better than them in terms of who can win the national title, but the Big 12 will be fine. It will be a highly entertaining college football league. It will put multiple teams in the playoff most years. Like, it's a good league. And the Cam Rising thing at Utah is so interesting because if he doesn't play this season, I think he gives him a medical red shirt, and he could lead them into the Big 12. Oof. And I'd pick Utah to win the Big 12 next year if he's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing about the Big 12 is the four they brought in that started this year, they're not doing very well right now. But BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, Houston will be good within 2 or 3 years. They will, recruit better, get deeper, and be competitive in the Big 12. The best thing about the Big 12 and what's going to make it so much fun is you will have these years where 10 or 11 of those teams will have a legitimate chance to win the conference title and make a college football playoff berth. Like that is – you're not going to get that anywhere else. None of the other leagues are going to be like that. And so every regular season game is going to be awesome.
Andy, how seriously do you take the Michigan sign stealing scandal, and what can the NCAA do about something that to me feels kind of hard to prove, right? I mean, isn't it the reason why
it's not hard to prove.
Really? Okay.
If you've got video of people sitting in the stands using their phones or using cameras to film assistant coaches on the sideline
right.
with another game that your team's not involved in, they got you. But the question is, what can they do about it? Because this is a complicated thing.
Right.
Because this is the kind of case where what they're saying is this happened this year. And so if it happened this year, theoretically, you want to take care of this as soon as humanly possible because this is something that can move the line. Like, I don't know what Michigan did. We're going to go innocent until proven guilty right now. But let's say somebody did this. You don't know how many opponents they've already got scouted out. Now, all of them have been warned at this point, and they're changing their signals. But you probably have to go pretty deep and have to change an awful lot. And you just don't know. Now, there's an easier solution to this because right now, the NCAA has to investigate that. That actually is something you want to have done at the conference level.
Right.
But the conferences aren't equipped to do it.
Last thing for me. Oops, sorry.
I was going to say the NCAA, they're going to take forever to investigate this because they take forever to do everything. So the season will be over by the time they get it. What they can do is by next year, put the freaking radio in the freaking helmet. The NFL has been doing it since 1994. There's no reason you can't do it in college football.
Right. Right. Hey, listen, Andy, the first rendering of the rankings by the playoff committee comes out on Halloween. Now, that's scary, right?
Ooh.
Will they see it the same as the AP and the coaches poll, you think?
By that point, I think they will. There's usually a little bit of variation, not necessarily like 1 and 2, but usually kind of 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's funny because the playoff committee will do it, and then the next weekend, the AP and coaches will just go match the playoff committee, which is fine. That's probably the direction it should go because the playoff committee is coming at it with fresh eyes, with actual data. They're not worried about who was considered good in the preseason. So it should work that way rather than the other way. But, I think they'll be pretty consistent because you're going to have Penn State, Ohio State this week. That'll help kind of separate that. Georgia will have played Florida right before they do the rankings. So you'll have an idea. The one team you won't necessarily have an idea yet with is Michigan because their schedule's been so bad so far. They don't play Penn State until November 11th. I don't know that we're going to really have a good handle on them until then. But everybody else, I think that they should have a decent handle on.
Andy Staples on 3, our guest. Subscribe to Andy Staples on 3 wherever you download podcasts. Him mixed with this show, a great way to start your morning if you are a college football fan. Andy, great stuff as always, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, there's Andy Staples with us this morning, making us smarter about college football as always. As we begin to wrap up the show and the week, a little preview of games to watch, when they'll be on, and what we think about them coming up next. Wrapping up the show and wrapping up the week on RKW, brewed by 8th and Roast. Kayla and Ramon will have you covered Monday as we react to the football weekend, react to Tennessee, Alabama. I will be out, and it's the perfect scenario for me, guys, because if Tennessee wins, I'll probably call in and hijack the show for like maybe 5 minutes to just act a fool. But if they lose, I don't have to say anything.
Oh, gosh. We should make you
I'll be
call
on
in
vacation.
regardless.
No. I'll be unavailable. I'll be on a golf course.
I'm calling it right now. The Titans win this weekend.
There you go.
Oh, that going out on a limb there, isn't it?
That's like the classic joke when Auburn plays
Wow.
LSU. Oh, I'm going with the Tigers. Oh, never heard that one before.
I know a lot of Titans fans are, though, saying, at least we don't have anxiety this weekend. We can just let the anxiety rest a bit because they don't have to, guess what's going to happen in this game because there is none.
You guys have any bye week plans?
What are plans in football season?
Well,
there's no such thing.
Mm-hmm.
Watch football. That's
Okay.
my plan.
There you go.
Yeah.
All weekend, baby.
Nashville SC, New York Red Bulls on the 104.5 The Zone app tomorrow night. 4:30 pregame, 5 o'clock kick. I'll be on the call for that one. CPA FRA tonight. Big one in Division II AA. Undefeated team against a one-loss team. Going to be a good one. So looking forward to that. College football weekend. Who wins between Ohio State and Penn State? Buckeyes a 4.5-point favorite.
That's a toss for me. My gut is really saying Penn State.
Ooh, interesting. Surprises me.
But it's at Ohio State. I like them at home. Yeah, I got to go with Ohio State, even though my gut's saying Penn State.
So I played Ohio State 4 times as a student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Never lost once.
Against Ohio State?
Mm-hmm.
Who was the coach at the time?
Was it Jim Tressel?
Oh, Tressel was the coach.
Mhm.
Okay. Not John Cooper?
No, it might have been John Cooper. But either way, I've watched James Franklin's mustache turn gray. and for a reason. Obviously, he's led a killer program there. Not without its issues, but I don't think that they're there yet to go into Ohio State and get a dub.
I think Ohio State wins, but Penn State covers the 4.5.
That's fair.
I still have some Ohio State Buckeye Stadium grass in my.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I think we've talked about that
Yeah.
before, actually. I remember you saying
I
that.
had a mouthpiece guard, and I just took a chunk of it and put it in my mouthpiece.
There's
guard
not
as I left.
many people that can say they didn't lose to Ohio State.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
You and I didn't lose to Ohio State, but we also never beat Ohio State. We never played against Ohio State.
I remind Edward George of that every time we see each other.
I bet you do.
I've got some Notre Dame turf.
Do you really?
Huh.
Miracle at South Bend. Tennessee over Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'd like to go watch a game there.
It's fun. Nicest fans I've ever dealt with as a road fan. I wanted them to be meaner to me. I know I've told this story before.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere you would go, they'd be like, hope you enjoy your visit to Notre Dame. It's like, I hope I enjoy it more than you. Yeah. But please be mean to me. Not as mean as Florida fans are to you. That's the worst place to go as a road fan.
Or Georgia.
But see, that's what you're used to because that's how the Vols treat the away team.
What do you mean?
They're just not they're nasty. They're
I
just
don't
not.
know.
Yeah.
Depends on where you are. Depends on where you are. There was a Texas A&M fan that went.
My daughter's an alum.
Oh,
watch
that's
her cheer.
right. I keep
There was
forgetting.
an A&M fan who went viral over the weekend on Twitter saying this was the nicest environment I've ever been to, and my son now wants to be a Tennessee fan because he thought Neyland Stadium was so cool.
I'm not saying it's not cool. I'm
No,
just saying
right. Yeah, no, for sure. And well, I am the one that went on this show a couple weeks ago and said we need to be less welcoming to visitors. So I don't know. There's a balance there.
Need to be nice like Vandy fans.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. No stray shots at them today.
Oh, that's
No.
not stray. It's a direct shot.
No stray
Nothing stray
shots.
about it. We're just taking direct hits.
Came out of
sometimes.
nowhere, though.
They're not worried about wins and losses. They've got good salaries.
Yeah. Tennessee, Alabama. Time to make the pick.
Ooh. Why is this so hard this weekend to pick teams? There's so many games.
Listen, I don't think that Alabama will take light of the fact that they have dominated this series just because of what happened last year. And obviously, this is a ranked Tennessee team that's coming to town, and they mean business. And I don't think that Nick Saban's team right now is the team of old. It doesn't have that feel to it. So I think that they're the most vulnerable that we've seen them in recent years. So it wouldn't be a surprise to me if the Vols went down there and got a dub. If it is a loss by the Tennessee Volunteers, it's very maybe a field goal or a very small amount.
Yeah, I it's hard because the environment thing is always something until you prove it. Where's that at? And that's something that Tennessee's struggled with. However, I think the thing I like about Heupel is he continues to move this team in the right direction. Each week they're fixing things. They're finding ways to look better in certain situations. Now, with saying that, Nick Saban is the GOAT, and he gets his teams prepared no matter what. But something's just telling me that this defense for Tennessee can make it really difficult for Milroe on Saturday. So I'm going to literally go with Tennessee by like a point.
If Tennessee wins the turnover battle, I think it wins the game. Ultimately, though, I don't think that happens. I think Alabama wins. I think they win by a touchdown. I would reluctantly pick Tennessee to cover the 8.5. I just need to see Tennessee go into that environment. There's a reason why they haven't won there since James Banks in 5 overtimes got them the win in 2003 when I was ready to go to Waffle House about halfway through that game. It's going to be good. We're going to learn a lot about both teams. I think certainly. Brad, thank you for joining us this morning. Fun stuff.
Thanks, Brad.
Enjoyed it. Back at it Monday. Kayla and Ramon will have you covered with the weekend recap of the football week. And then it's a Oilers game week for the boys in Powder Blue.
Yes, Alumni Weekend.
Coming up next weekend. We will talk to you then. The Buck Rising Show with Lucas Panzica is next.